Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Discovery Core, an offshoot of London Station where we look at tabletop role-playing game products out there in the marketplace, cool things that are going on, games that have been out, games that are coming out. Today we're looking at a game that's been out for a little while. I was going to do a bit more research, but it's been a busy week for me. I've been doing a lot of administration work. I don't know if you all saw, I updated the London Station website. Ooh, I thought nobody's ever going to visit this, so I don't really need to update it. And then I was talking to channel friend Zachary, who gave me a bunch of tips. And I implemented those tips, and it looks much better. Morning, Deep Priest. Hope you're doing well. It's a nice, bright Saturday morning, I think. I'm saying that out loud so I can make sure I know what day it is. Yep, it's Saturday. Okay. Today's one of those days I didn't realize. I think they changed my schedule, maybe, but I don't start till 6 p.m. today, so I have the whole afternoon. I could do anything. I could do anything with that time. It's limitless, truly limitless. Anyhow, I just slapped together this banner, so that's good to go. I got my overlay on the right colors today, and we're going to take a look at Household by Two Little Mice. And like I was just alluding to, I was going to do a little bit more research on when did this game even come out. It wasn't that long ago, within the last 5 years. Their delivery was in June 2023, assuming they actually hit that, but that's when it came out. So, oh, I see. Oh, interesting. There was a 2018 edition no longer supported. I wonder, was this one of those deals where the game was pretty much fully made and then it got picked up by a publisher? Is that how Two Little Mice runs their operations? I don't know that much about them. I've had them bookmarked forever. But Two Little Mice have done a number of other things. Let's take a look briefly at what those things are, if my website will load. Twilight Sword, that's right. That's the other big one that was backing recently. It's kind of like a, let's go over here. Kind of like as a Legend of Zelda kind of thing. Window capture, there we go. And it should come up any second now. Any second now. Actually, you know what? It might even come up if I click this little eyeball icon that makes it visible. There it is. So yeah, here we have Twilight Sword. Oh, that's right, they do Outgunned, which was previously Broken Compass, and then there was a snafu with the rights, and then they got the rights back, and so Outgunned Adventure is kind of a retread of Broken Compass because they didn't have rights to their own name anymore. Sort of some confusing publishing law going on there. Anyway, so that's a game that's got a number of spin-offs, and then here you have Household. So these, I think, are kind of probably their three most prominent entries into the RPG marketplace. But we're doing a first contact, which means I know almost nothing about this game, except for what I've chatted about with Thaddeus about. Thaddeus is very eager for this first contact, so I hope I can do it justice. One thing that everybody universally agrees about Household is that the art is freaking beautiful. So let's just zoom in here. I'll show you some of the... So here's Volume 1 that we're looking at today, and then Volume 2. And we're going to have a visual feast for the eyes today, I can tell. I believe Thaddeus was explaining to me the sagas are like adventure books, so we're going to figure it out together. This is actually really beautiful. A practical guide to living inside the house. Very beautiful. Oh, there's an art book. Wow. That would be a good thing for a collector to have. So, anyway, let's fire up the old Adobe and get this all squared away because all my sidebars are in the wrong place. And there you have it, Household. So, premise of the game, again, without me knowing much, is that we have a bunch of littlings, they're called, little creatures of varying, whatever. And they all have sort of a European Fey folklore lineage to their different, I guess we'll call them ancestries until we know better. And they live in a giant house. And so it is actually the adventures. Like you can see this guy here, he's got a spoon, and he's riding a mouse, rat, something. And this guy's got a key as a weapon. There's a lot of dudes with keys for weapons. This guy has a shield that's made out of button and half of a pair of scissors. So it's interesting because the art at a glance is just traditional fantasy, and it's not until you look into the details and figure out that there's something else going on here that you really realize it. Of course, Household with a little key logo in the middle there. This is a beautiful piece of iconography, I mean, if we could just appreciate that for a minute. With the keyhole in the middle, but it's the two H's, but it kind of also looks like a gilded like gate or door that you're going to open up. Very cool. Also, look, we got a little dude inside of a bubble here. Travel by bubble. It is cost effective. I think I'm going to throw some music on the stream. I have not yet gotten comfortable with the subscription I paid for to pull down a bunch of music, so I really just only have the ones that are kind of like, your London Station spacey stuff. But I do have that old Tales of Symphonia playlist, which sometimes is good for streaming about RPGs. Gotta wait for it to load, though. Any minute, it's gonna load. This is a native program running on my computer, but does not want to come up. There it is. Okay. Open recent media. That's not gonna let me do it that way. Okay, fine. Fine, we'll go a long way around. We know how to do that. Where is the playlist file? There it is. I drop it in there. And as we do this, I'm kind of trying to delete out like the intense battle music. So we'll keep an eye and an ear on that. And then over time, this playlist will be a little cozier and better for just, RPG tunes. I think this is a great track to start off with. So off we go. Household Volume 1, and this is, okay, all right, let's take a break. This is a full game. This is not me looking at a quick start where we can just barely make it by the end of 2.5, 3 hours of a stream, so we are not going to get all of it. We're not going to get even remotely all of it, nor should we. That's not the purpose of these streams, and we don't want to, steal from people's intellectual property anyway. If you like the book, buy the game. That's how you get the whole thing. But with that said, there's 322 pages. I've got a little bit of a primer from Thaddeus about specific areas that he thinks that will be necessary to check to get the full experience, and then other areas that I can potentially kind of skim or skip over. So we're going to do that. Household, adjective, before noun, relating to a house. House, noun, singular, a building that people live in, plus hold, noun, singular, control, keep. Anyway, fun. All right, I'm not going to know any of these names, I'm sure, but let's see. Based on Household by Ricardo Sirigodano. Is this based on a book? How did I not know that? Now I must look. Now I must search. Or maybe they're saying it's based on the 2018 version of the game? I don't know. I'm not finding a quick answer, but that's okay. That's okay. We follow where our questions lead us. Okay. Lead artist. Don't know this person, but your art is amazing. Everybody says so. Additional art. Yep, not a single name known to me, but that's okay. I love their logo, too. It's very, very cute, very clever. The two, it's two little mice, and the two is made up out of the negative space of the little mice. Very clever. I like it. All right, so what do we got to look forward to here? Contents, folk and nations. We'll probably do a decent amount there to familiarize ourselves with what types of peoples we're talking about here. We might not read the full entries, but at least we'll get the introduction summaries of them. This here, contracts. Thaddeus made sure that I knew that if I did not do these, I think his words were he would drive over to wherever I am and throttle me. I think that's what he said. Pretty sure. Character sheet, we definitely want to take a look at. This is neat. Look at that. I don't know that the last time I've seen a book. Skip that song. Why am I getting a bunch of errors from my music player? I don't know that I've seen character sheets pop up in the middle of a book before. It's very interesting. Professions. So these are going to be kind of classes, I think. What's up, Thaddeus? Hope you had a good drive this morning. I did tell everybody that you threatened me if I didn't do contracts, so now, there's record of it. Just to protect myself. How to play, we definitely want to do probably all of this. Well, I say all of it, but, it's a London Station stream. We'll see. Equipment and wealth, we probably won't touch at all. I will be very interested in just the wealth in general, how it's done. Because you all know me, I don't like inventory and wealth systems. That's not what I come to RPGs for. I don't want to play Logistics the game, unless I'm playing Logistics the game, in which case, that's fun. Household history. Yeah, okay, so there's a concept here, and we'll see how explicitly clear it is, or if you really need the full picture. But Thaddeus was telling me that this book is a written history of the events in the household of the last 5 years somehow. You were sleep deprived and had no filter. It was hilarious, and I appreciated it. I was like, wow, he cares. He really cares. Let's see. We were London Station. We do a lot of voice calls and hangouts. And what was it? Friday night? No, it was Thursday night. I was doing a bunch of work. I redid the website. I put together The Signal issue 3, which is out. If you're a member of the Patreon, you get to read the monthly newsletter. If you're a specialist tier member of the Patreon, you get to read the feature article every month that I write. I say every month. There's an asterisk there, but don't worry about it. So anyway, I was on voice for 6 hours, and just people coming and going and working on other things or chatting. And then last night, we ended up having a very prolonged discussion about our Legend of the Mist play-by-post games that are going to get started up, about some formatting for that, and then the conversation spun off into everything else under the sun, including the fact that yesterday I took my very first injection of estrogen, which was pretty awesome and exciting. So that's very, very awesome. Anyway, you're here for household. Household history, yes, the saga, which are adventure-ish type things, details about the house, and then appendices. So let's get to it. We will read probably through the preface here to get ourselves a footing, and then we'll see where we want to go from there. It's going to be a spontaneous exploration. Readers beware. These pages are the only two in this book written by a human like you, written by me. Because this book was written by the little folk, for the little folk, let me explain. One day, as I was minding my own business, I stumbled into a tiny little book, so small it could sit on my finger, and clearly I pocketed it. Nobody gives you anything for free these days. On the rare occasions you find something like this, you just have to keep it. But to get to it, one way or another, this tiny little book spent a couple years collecting dust in a drawer before I even realized that there was actually something written on its tiny pages. So I called a friend of mine who had a good magnifying lens and asked to borrow it for a while. He lent it to me, and thus I set out to read what was written on the strange tiny book I had found. As it turns out, the book had been written, who knows when, by a fellow named Hermaso J. Hemingway, and he wasn't exactly a human being, but a little being, specifically a boggart. If you aren't following, it's okay. I too understood nothing of these things before reading the tiny book, even more so because the book was written in some strange language that was a little Old English, a little Modern English, and a little chestnut cake. Once we finished translating the entirety of this tiny book, we ended up with a much larger book, all black and white and with no pictures, but the tiny little book was full of pictures and color and was overall just beautiful to see. So we called another friend, and she sat down with all her patience and talent and copied the beautiful pictures one by one, losing a couple diopters and many nights of sleep in the process. In the end, we learned that Hermaso and the other littlings are just a couple tiny meters tall, a unit of measure that still eludes us, and they live in a huge abandoned house. Scratch that. It's a normal house. They are the ones to be tiny, but they don't really know this, so they say the house is big. Anyway, this Hermaso was a pretty smart fellow, as he wrote the book to give everyone a chance to experience and retell the adventures lived by littlings in the house, so that their deeds could enter the annals of history. This means that what you are holding isn't just a game, but a bridge between our world and another, one that is much smaller and much more wonderful. Thanks to this book, we can finally learn and transcribe the story of the household and the little folk that live there, and this is great. But even more importantly, we can do this while playing a game together, becoming tiny littlings and becoming the protagonists of little great adventures, and that's even better. Anyway, this is the long and short story of how we found, translated, copied, and scaled to human size the book you are now holding, which is the faithful replica of Hermaso's work. We honestly hope and believe you can have much fun reading and playing it. Oh, and I almost forgot. This book is titled Household. We will skip over the what is a role-playing game, because we don't need that. Household is a role-playing game filled with adventure, intrigue, and social interactions set in a large abandoned house. It takes place in a world that resembles the first years of our 19th century? Yeah, that's how that works. In which each room constitutes a proper nation you can explore. Players of Household take on the role of littlings, little beings of the little folk from European folklore. Together, these littlings will go on to live little great adventures that span over 5 of the most troubled years in the history of the house, beginning at the end of the First Household War and living in the shadow of a new threat. It was a magical period when all folk came together in new alliances despite old disagreements, a time of ideological and industrial revolutions. All this always on the brink of a diplomatic incident. Tiny meters. We have no way of knowing how tall littlings are, or how big the house truly is. What we know is that the little folk measure everything in tiny meters, a unit of measurement that is, alas, unknown to us this day. As such, we decided to consider that, for littlings, a tiny meter is about as large as a meter is to humans. It's easier to live with this lack of clarity than to try and cram our unsightly units of measurements into this tiny world. I like this because it kind of just says, don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. So, that's pretty good. What are we playing? Players of Household take on the role of littlings and retrace their steps over the span of 5 chapters, each representing 1 year in the history of Household. So you will play all 5 years if you do a full game of this time period. That is this historical time period. The game is mainly focused on the characters, their relationships, and their linear and non-linear growth. I like that sentence. During each chapter, some historical events will take place, changing the house and its inhabitants forever, and possibly interfering to varying degrees with the character's story. Typical adventures in Household can be investigating on the disappearance of a precious bumblebee, taking part in the Great Ball on the Chandelier, exploring the lair of a spider, crossing the long hallway and facing its pitfalls, or going on a mission for the Sultan of Piping. I might be saying that wrong, but that's okay. How to play. It's a game engine that uses small pools of 6-sided dice. We love D6s. Okay, so we're determining the outcome of any task that might entail risks or that could lead to memorable consequences. So as you know, when we look at games and we're looking at games are a marriage between freeform storytelling and resolution systems when you disclaim decision-making for the things that you have decided are important to you and the game. The game will tell you when to do this and what is important, and that is the game's way of saying, this game is about these things, so we're going to slow down and pause, and we're going to explore this at a moment-to-moment pace. When rolling dice in Household, your goal isn't to roll the highest or lowest total possible. To reach success, you have to combine 2 or more dice with the same result, in pairs, 3 of a kind, and so on. The larger the number of dice on the same side, the greater your success. Household uses custom dice, designed to make it easier and faster to spot your successes. While these dice are recommended to enhance your gaming experience, they are not a requirement. We have some more beautiful art. This is a 2-page spread, so let's show it to you. Look at that. Beautiful. Now, check this out. Check out this caption. Pictured here, a fresco painted inside the piano in Blackshine. It just gives you that crazy sense of wonder. It's very cool. Very cool. All right. Let's go back to 1-page mode, please. And thank you. Years 6 HC to 10 HC. Household. I don't know what the C would be for. I feel like if my brain was more awake, I could figure it out. Curated by Armaso J. Hemingway with original illustrations and fine reproductions by Mr. Julian D. Bilibinski. Printed in Chesterfield by the Fire. You can tell that there's a lot already. You can tell that there's a lot in the world building here. Which is such a wild concept, because we think of world building, we think of building worlds, right? Household calendar. Could be calendar. Yeah. Good job, Copper. That could be it. That does make a lot of sense. But yeah, so you think of world building and you think of like open air, like world, overworld, nations, nation states, cities, all these things. And you're going to have some analogs to that, but it's this concept of there's a finite border in a way that I guess there is with a globe or a sphere as well, but it wraps around on itself. So anyway, I'm rambling, but allow yourself to be fascinated by that. Okay, so here's Armaso J. Hemingway with his little wall art of a penny that they drilled through for some reason. Tiny little snail shell for a little light. That's kind of cool. Anyway, this is, as you can tell already, we've seen, 3 pieces of art, and you can tell that every time you see one, you just want to stare at it. Like, look, he's got a little model of a house on his writing desk inside of an actual human-sized house. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Shall we read this? I would love to read it, but I do know it's a huge book. And so... yes, we're going to let it go. We can come back to it later if we need to. The book you are now reading is more than a treatise on history. Household is the first collaborative universal history book. Yes, I am proud of it. It's a history book because Household is, first and foremost, a retelling of the events that shaped the recent history of the house. All the facts, the dates, the names, and everything else you'd expect to find in that type of book. It's universal because while many go on and on about how history is written by the winners, that's just not the case. History is written every day by every single littling in every nation throughout the house. Each of us has a pivotal role to play. It's collaborative because it's much different from other books you may have encountered. Much different indeed. This book, and you'll understand my pride in saying this, was written to allow everyone a chance to tell the story and even the saga of littlings who are largely or completely neglected by history. If you know of a character whose life and deeds left a mark on history, this is the book for you. Is this your first step on the path to becoming a household? Oh, this is your first step on the path to becoming a household historian. Isn't it exciting? It's very interesting how it's feeding in on itself. And it's doing that in a self-aware way that I find really interesting. Because I wasn't sure from the intro itself, outside of the actual reprinting of the household book that this human character found, if it was actually a game in the little book as well, and it seems to be. It seems that this guy, literally in the world, made this into a role-playing game of their own history for the littlings to play, and we are now reading it, which is layered and bizarre, frankly. Gather your fellow historians around a nice large table. Each of you will take on the role of a character, stepping into their shoes much like an actor would, reliving their adventures and learning more about them. One of you will be the narrator, and they'll be tasked with setting the scene with secondary characters and unraveling the tangle of events. The ideal narrator is a historian graduated at the University of Clockminster on Astravia, a littling who spent their life studying and researching. If you don't have access to this ideal candidate, anyone among you who is patient enough to read through this book will be worthy of the title. Your collective goal is to play together and piece together incredible adventures your characters lived through in the house. Thanks to you, these characters will earn their eternal place in the history books. This is really wild. And I'm not finding the words to express my surprise at how this is being done. But if they come to me, you better believe I will share. Yeah, even just the margin art, or whatever you want to call this, not full art pieces, but whatever. The events of Volume 1 all take place inside the house. I shall take you through the 4 household nations and their respective rooms together. We will explore the ground floor, the basement, and even the upper floor, trying not to omit anything. This will be a journey. From now on, to ease your way through this book and its stories, there will also be illustrations by Mr. Bilibisky, as well as replicas of art pieces from some of the most beautiful cities of the house, all reproduced in accordance with the aesthetics and styles of their folk. Pictured here, Litha and Tubo, ready for their next journey. The first volume of Household is focused on a 5-year period that will later be known through history as the Fragile Peace. Everything you are about to read harks back to the events that happened between the years 6 and 10 after the institution of the High Council. So that's was not Household Calendar at all. It's High Council. According to the traditional calendar, this arc of time coincides with the years 97 to 101, with the Master gone. The days since the house was empty. To make the experience more immersive from now on, I will talk about the folk, nations, and eminent characters as if we were still in that time, making no anticipations. If you want to brush up on the history of your house, fear not, you can find everything in Section 7, Household History. Characters live through history, and history lives eternal. Wise Paracelsus. Are you ready, my dear reader? I only met you a few pages ago, and you're already a budding historian. I'm so proud of you. I must admit, I am also somewhat envious of all the stories you'll live through and write, and of all the wonderful characters you will meet. I've had a good life. I've also possibly seen more than my heart could take, but I wouldn't hesitate to leave again if I could. Who knows how many stories I haven't heard yet. If you ever wish to share your discoveries with me, I'll be glad to read them. You can send me a letter at this address. Lives in the hearth, huh? The idea. I was spending an evening in a pub in Downridge. A slough. I want to pronounce this right because it's going to come up a lot. Hold on. S-L-U-A-G-H. S-L-U-A-G-H. Slaw is acceptable. Okay, we're going to go with Slaw. Slaw sitting on a table was telling about a battle. All the children were enraptured by his story. They were also the only ones who hadn't heard it 1,000 times already. As the Slaw was describing the final assault, a young Undini stood up and stated that his father, a war hero, was the littling who defeated the enemy general. All those who believed him were very impressed, but there was an old boggart who wouldn't stand for it. He said that his brother, who would never lie to him, had taken a bullet to save the life of that same general in that same battle. Feeling tensions rise, the Slaw fished out a die and suggested the two make a wager, and they agreed. Fished out a die. The die and fate decided the Undini was right, and much to my surprise, the boggart took it rather well. After all, his brother had always been a crafty old littling. This is how my idea was born, a game made to reconstruct history that also lets the dice fill in the doubts that would otherwise remain unknown forever. Believe me, it works. That's cool. Love the writing in this. It's an interesting writing style, and I actually find myself tripping and stumbling over it more than other writing. And I don't know if this was translated. I don't know if Two Little Mice, because all of the names seemed, very Italian. So I am finding myself like tripping over the way the syntax is formed, but the concepts and the writing of it is good. It just has a different like cadence and a different pace than what I'm used to. But this is cool. This is really cool. I didn't really understand the high level concept of like you're living through a historical period, but you're telling the stories of the things that didn't make it into print, so to speak. So you're filling in the gaps of this history. But this made it click. It's just like this over-the-top overlay of, we're all going to assume this understanding that, like, we are creating the untold history as the dice reveal what actually happened. Whereas somebody in the future of what we're actually playing might be having the argument in what's their past about what actually happened. And so, okay, how do I want to say this? Because this is actually really, really interesting. We are playing through a quantum reality. You know what I mean? Like until the dice are rolled and a moment is decided, there is a future in which, potentially, I'm not saying this literally happens, but there's a future in which two different characters are arguing about what the truth is. And those two stories exist simultaneously in the future until they are decided. In the moment then, metaphysically, and in the present moment of you playing through it. You think it was produced in English? The cadence is probably more coming from them trying to match older English writing. That might be it. That's actually a really good insight. Thank you. That might be it. Okay, this is, I'm sure, a very beautiful work, but again, it's a big book. We got a lot to see. Got all the buttons and the little dice here. Folk and nations. Okay, now, I am not one who is very familiar with, like, folklore, fae stuff, European, this, that, and the other thing. I really just am. It's just not an area that's ever grabbed me, and so I don't know much about it. I would say that the most interfacing I've had with things of that nature is actually through the Terry Brooks series, A Night of the Word. Is that the name of the series? Running with the Demon, A Night of the Word, and Angel Fire East are the 3 books in the series. And it's a modern story in North America, but there are elements of it that harken back to, fae creatures and the lady in the water and all sorts of other crazy stuff. Not the Arthurian lady in the water, a different one. Nice little bee here. Origins of the Little Folk. Legends tell of an ancient time before time and of the building of the house. In that time, all the littlings lived together as equals, and they were called the Little Folk. When the building of the house was finally completed, all the members of the Little Folk gathered to choose their fate. Some of them wanted to move on the inside, while others much preferred life on the outside. Some of them had seen how big the master was, and they wanted to serve him. Others feared him and wanted to leave his place. Days and nights passed, but the little folk could not find a solution to satisfy all the different wants. And so they took up the difficult decision to split up. Trust a sprite if you pay them, a boggart if they give their word, a fairy if they sign their name, and a slaw when they say, "You should never trust me." That's fun. The little folk scattered, each group struggling to face dangers far bigger than themselves. In their desperation, they each turned to an ancestral force that could safeguard them and preserve their lines. Those who secured a contract, capital C, with the hearth and swore their fidelity to the master took the name of Brunies and went on to become the modern boggarts. So contract with the hearth and swore fidelity to the master. Okay. Those who turned to the stars and gained wings in return became the fae, and we now call them fairies. Those who called on the household forces and gained the lightness of the draft, the brilliance of the spark, or the strength of the drain are now known as sprites. This one is intriguing because I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Finally, those who had to abandon their ancient homeland struck a deal with the forces of far beyond and have only recently come back as the Slaw. Where legends end, oral tradition begins, telling us of the years when each little folk lived in isolation, almost forgetting the existence of the others. History begins the day Big Ben Hartworth, first among boggarts, learned of the master's disappearance. Soon after, the little folks would return to lay claim to their native land. We're going to zoom ahead here. Some more great art. This is the art I actually used as the original thumbnail that I designed. And then I was looking at it later. I was like, it doesn't pop enough. I got to put the main cover art on there. Anyway, beautiful piece. It's interesting, too, because I wonder how consistently they apply the scale. Because, like, you get a sense, like, die can be of all sorts of different sizes, but there is sort of a standard expectation about the thickness of paper, and therefore the thickness of the spine communicates a certain scale, whereas other things can always be a little more fluid. Anyway. A group of littlings ready for adventure. All right, here we go. Fairies. Let's see. Let me just skim through because I want to see kind of how these are laid out. So we're going to have an introduction. We're going to have a culture segment, population. We're going to have art that depicts them. She is gorgeous. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Languages. Fairy from the realm wearing beaver. I love that element. I saw that before. Love the dress. What is she going to be stabbing people with? Is that a thumbtack? Kind of a pushpin kind of a deal? Crazy. Their realms, insignia, national emblem, customs and traditions, armed forces. Good God. So as you can tell, we're not going to read all of this for all of them, or any of them even. Moving to the realm, and then we're on to boggarts. So let's take kind of, I think we're probably going to read their introductions. We're going to gawk at their art, and let's skip this song. It's a little different. And there we go. There's a battle song to delete from the playlist. Remove. Okay, we're shaping the playlist as we go. Okay. Sorry for all the scrolling, and here we go. We'll read the introduction, and that's how we're going to generally do these. The ancient fae folk, mostly known today as the fairy folk, became part of the household after the fall of their ancestral home, the Dendroneos tree. Dendroneos tree. I love that word. Dendroneos. Oof, it has gravitas. Definitely touch on the hereditary contract. Okay, thank you, Thaddeus, I will. Known to most for their beauty, grace, and exquisite proportions, fairies are also characterized by charming wings, like those of a conceited dragonfly made of a shiny, see-through membrane that takes on many different shades. According to popular belief, the hue of the wings goes hand in hand with the hair color of the fairy. It seems that black hair is often associated with green or bluish wings, while red or yellow wings are more common for fairies with blonde or coppery hair. But, in all confidence, if you've ever been near Feriev, you probably have met your fair share of exceptions to this old superstition. That's kind of a superstition that seems like it's built around eye color as well. Like it has that same vibe element, understanding peoples and trying to categorize them and then realizing there are exceptions to everything. Fairies are usually slender and tall. Their skin is proverbially radiant, free of imperfections, and soft and smooth as refined spider silk. Fairies are also known for their icy, almost expressionless eyes. To my knowledge, there is no limitation to the color of their irises. It's not uncommon for fairy travel documents to use peculiar expressions such as eyes like sunshine through molasses or silvery teal iris. Though this may seem funny, in fairy culture it is very important for the color of the eyes to be properly recognized and named. Likewise, to trivialize the topic by using inappropriately generic expressions such as blue eyes is considered disrespectful and could easily offend a fairy. This is neat. And, not everything is an allegory for gender. I get that. But this does seem like you could rewrite this and say, there are communities for whom it's very important that you understand the identities of people. And others might say, why do you need to have so many definitions? Why do you need to have so many labels? It's like, we don't need them, but sometimes they're helpful for people. So I'm reading this and I'm seeing this as a gender allegory, gendered sexuality and everything around. It's Pride Month. Deal with it. So that's very interesting to I don't know. That's just what I see right now. The facial features of fairies are so perfect that littlings of other folk sometimes have a hard time telling them apart. This is particularly true of the slaw, who are used to more extreme aesthetic differences, often say that all fairies look the same. Racist. That's a joke. I'm kidding. Fairy blood is thick and somewhere between orange and yellow in color, a feature that gained it the label of warm blood. In contrast, the adjective cold-blooded is sometimes used by fairies as a pejorative to refer to an even... Hold on. Let me pause this dramatic battle music. In contrast, the adjective cold-blooded is sometimes used by fairies as a pejorative to refer to an even insult other... to refer to and even insult other folk. Wow. The reading comprehension is not there. All right, let's remove this battle music from the playlist. Okay. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so anyway, this notion that, like, they're like, hey, eye color is a part of us that is really important to us, and if you don't respect it in the way that we respect it, it's offensive. You don't have to agree, but they're just asking, to make an effort. These guys all seem to have the same eye color. To me, which, sorry I didn't give each one an individual description. You can see hers are like golden, though. Sorry, they are the color of honey filtering through moonlight. Where is that contract section? Did I miss it? Moving to the realm, armed forces, customs and traditions. Realm? Oh, here it is. Hereditary contract. Right. Okay, because let's remember, the contracts were established at the time that the littlings were establishing themselves as beings in and outside of the household itself. Question, though, because I already forgot, and we're going to go back and figure it out, because it's importante. It is importante. So they scattered... before the master was gone. They had the contracts in place before the master was gone. That's what I'm looking for. Hey, spider. Oh, this little hunting spider is trying to jump from one monitor to the other. It's not in a good angle, dude. Anyway, I've got hunting spiders in here. They're cool. They're fuzzy. It is odd that they mention they all look similar and then give 3 examples of them looking very different from each other. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that speaks to that speaks more to the perspective of the other. Oh, you made the jump. I missed it. Sorry. Good job, spider. We all believed in you. The spider is a littling, It's on theme. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, I think it has more to say that element of they all look the same to the slaw is more a commentary on the slaw than it is on the fairy. Cool. Let's do the realm. I think what I'll do is I'll hold to this heading 1, basically, is how I'm going to do this. If it has a level 1 header, I'll read it. Many years after the master disappeared, Dendroneos, the temple tree, fell, and the fairies were forced to undertake a massive exodus. Tsar Oberon Trismegistus, whom some call Dear Departed, led his folk through the great window into the dining hall where they founded the realm. The lands of the realm include the dining hall and the kitchen, and they are mostly inhabited by fairies. The capital is Astravia, the crystal city founded on the highlight chandelier. That's cool. And there's also this concept, when I was just passingly familiar with this book, where I was like, are there still people in this house? Is that, is it a game of, they're dodging people, and they're like, oh, we're secretly, in the background, like The Borrowers, or The Secret Life of Variety, I think is what it's called, the Ghibli film. But no, if you were to walk into this house as a human, you would see the evidence of these littlings, because they've got a city built on a chandelier. So that is neat, because it is kind of left to develop in this sort of wild way, where it becomes this thing that's simultaneously familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. I think that's a neat space to operate in for this. And I'm just thinking about this artistically. It's cool. It is organized as a hereditary monarchy led by Serena Arcadia Oberanovna, who also holds the prestigious title of ruling empress of the household. Okay. The national emblem is the 8-pointed star, the same symbol that led Oberon to the location of his new palace, according to tradition. On medals and ribbons, the emblem is often accompanied by 5 smaller stars representing the Serena and the 4 other members of the imperial family. The national motto of the realm is Custodiere et Capere, to protect and conquer, and it also appears on the banner of the Golden Backs. This book is challenging me to be a live reader of, and I think I'm smashing it. The tone is kind of nature reclaiming its place once humans leave. That's cool. Yeah. There's definitely elements of that. But I think there's also preservation of this artificial building, too. I don't think, we'll find out, I guess. I don't get the sense that these littlings are letting this place absolutely go to shit, either. Like, it seems like some sort of new third thing. Like, nature's reclaiming, but also not going back to raw nature. But, yeah, that's really fascinating, thematically. The National Bank of the Realm on Mount Guignol. There's a game called something Guignol. Grand Guignol. That was written by Luke something from Wildwood Games, who's a friend of Andrew Gillis. That looks actually really fascinating if you're into, like, sort of, I don't know, Gaslight London type investigation type stuff. Anyway. The National Bank mints plates and crystals with the profile of the Serena on one side and the 8-pointed star on the other. The national language is Fey. For decades, the realm has been the core of the Fey Empire, and to this day, still plays a pivotal role in the household empire. The imperialistic politics of late Oberon Trismegistus and the sensible leadership of his daughter Arcadia kept most of the realm safely away from the horrors of the war. Nowadays, the realm is widely regarded as the cradle of classic culture, literature, and art. Oh, I'm liking that tone and writing style. Makes me want to narrate from this. Okay. You say this, and earlier I was like, I have a job to do here, right? Okay, I'm supposed to share my thoughts about this work and this book, but I'm also sitting here just being like, can't I just do like a dramatic like audiobook reading for you guys and just read it top to bottom? Wouldn't that be fun? I should do audiobook work. I know that is a whole like thing. God, that would be fun. For decades, I just read all of that. Okay. I love this symbology too, by the way, because this, bam, that right there is prominently on the back of Nova, my favorite character from Marvel Comics. In the Dan and Abnett Lanning run, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning run of Nova from 2007 to 2012. It's a very special time in Cosmic Marvel. That would be awesome. I'm here for doing that for the history. It'd be so good. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what I'm even allowed to do. This is not like, is it fair use if the only transformative thing I'm applying to the content is my voice? No, it's not really. So it's like I can't really do that. I could do it. Actually, I could do that. Okay, we're going to take a break. All right, here, come over here. Come over here, guys. Let me turn this on. So I had this thought a long time ago. I hate reading monster manuals for games. I hate reading bestiaries. They just seem tedious to me, but I want to know the information that's in them. I have this weird paradox. I don't want to read them, but I want to know what's inside them. And I always thought, wouldn't it be cool? There was this product identity idea that I had a long time ago, and I was like, audio bestiary, where you just take a bestiary book and you just have somebody who reads it, and you can just listen to it as an audio file. I was like, that would be the most amazing thing for me. Because I want to learn about these creatures, but I don't want to like flip through their stat blocks and just give me the history and the information and the knowledge. So I always thought, gosh, wouldn't it be cool to have an audiobook line for RPGs, just in general? And you know what's cool? I should mention this as well. Hime Otsugi, friend of the channel, member of the Patreon, runs their own channel and Twitch stream and is wildly successful and does a lot of solo RPGs. Has written and is finishing writing Ballads of Dawn, which is a solo RPG that we will be featuring and playing on this channel at some point. They actually released for a game jam a game called Locking Out the Apocalypse, and it's actually kind of a Yahtzee mechanic as well, where you're trying to get it's more of like a phase 10 dice kind of game where you're trying to get specific results. Anyway, they released them reading their own rulebook as an audiobook alongside the game. So if you go get it on itch.io, you can actually get the audiobook of the rulebook, and it's them reading it. And if you've heard Hime's voice, they have a great reading voice. They're very, very pleasant to listen to. Anyway, so yeah, I would love. What if you made a company that contracted, with these other entities, and you're just like, look, we're just going to read your books out loud, and people can buy the audiobook file of it. Although people are already complaining that PDFs are too expensive. So here we go. We're back. There are a lot of these tracks in this soundtrack that are really great for this kind of thing. In fact, this song that's playing right now is in a dungeon where you have to use a magic ring to shrink down in size, and then you fight like rats that are now giant, as in the RPG. Cool. All right, side tangent. Here we go, boggarts. You know what? Let's also do a thing that I like to do: comparative analysis. Okay, color theme is important to me. So here we have greens, right? It reads as gold because it has that tan, but actually this is green. There's a lot of green to this. The text is in green. We have flowing art pieces here. We have elegance with the chandeliers and the crystals hanging off. And now we're going to go to boggart. Cool, blue, books, harder edges, sharper lines. And this, to me, already tells me that these are going to be potentially we know that the dude who wrote this book was a boggart. So we're looking for something kind of like studious and analytical here. We're going to see how well the art communicates the style of what this is. The art and the design choice, and even the font. Is the font different? Hold on. The font is not different, so we don't need to read into that. Okay. Boggarts were the first little folk to step into the house back when the master and his family still inhabited its rooms. Oral tradition tells us about a time when the first boggarts, who back then still went by their ancient name of brownies, faithfully served the master. You know, it's funny, they also called them brawnies, Bronnies, which I know these are different names that all culminated into these things. Their duties were keeping the house clear of insects and protecting the family. In exchange for their service, the master granted them shelter and allowed them to enjoy the warmth of the hearth. Boggarts are generally tall, sturdy, and burly in build. Their features are kind, but somewhat angular, their jaws wide and squared, their foreheads tall, and their noses flat. Boggart hair is usually thick and strong, colored in rich, earthy tones like black, chestnut brown, rarely veering to honey blonde. Women don't usually wear any makeup, and while girls keep their hair long and untied, updos are common for older women. Men prefer simple hairstyles, and some need to shave up to twice a day to keep the stubble at bay. As such, beards and thick sideburns are very common. They can be worn either shaggy or combed and are rarely styled in any elaborate shape. Boggart eyes are small and expressive. They tend to be darker in color, but some are mint green or lavender. Any boggart would consider themselves lucky to have light eyes, as they are widely regarded as a sign of beauty. Interesting commentary there. If you've ever met a boggart, you probably thought they were tall. It is common knowledge that most of them stand well above the average littling. If you ever go for a stroll in Walford or near the fireplace, you're likely to feel tiny as you are surrounded by strapping littlings standing a full head above others. The natural prowess of this folk fostered the creation of an army that has repeatedly been described as unstoppable, which is in turn why there have been several points in history when boggarts played a crucial role in conflicts. Their reputation as fearsome fighters is something of a household legend, to the point that nobles and wealthy merchants of all folks and nations seek out boggarts to employ as their personal guards. The flip side of this, however, is a reputation as quarrelsome and high-strung people who prefer to solve their problems with brute force rather than reason. Once again, I must denounce these allegations as baseless and false. Brownies in folklore are little fairies that would emerge during the night in houses to do household tasks in exchange for eating some food or money. Okay, cool. Yeah, that tracks. So I didn't get the academic piece that I thought I would see here, and it might still come. So I didn't get that, but I did get, the communication of the, hard lines and duty, right? And firmness, not necessarily rigidity, but firmness to them. Ooh, battle music. Battle music. Remove from playlist. Replay. All right. Culture. Okay, yeah, so you can see the very, firm features is, I guess, the word that's coming to mind. So I'm getting this sense of, hardy folk. Whereas maybe in another role-playing game that's more about being overland, overworld, these would be the people that you'd be like, yeah, they're the hard workers, they're the farmers, they're the smiths, they're the whatever, is the vibe I'm getting from them. Okay, I said I was going to read all the H1 headers, but I did not read culture for the fairy, so we're not going to do that here. We are going to do hereditary contract. I love that the fictional author's voice plays heavily into the telling. Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy that a lot of games have started doing this, and they do it to varying degrees of success, I will say. Sometimes it's grating. Sometimes it is. Upon birth, all boggarts inherit the contract first established between the ancient brownies and the household fire. All littlings of this folk can proudly say they're dear to the hearth. This is capitalized in a way that almost makes it seem like a tag or a theme that you would see in Legend of the Mist, or any other game that has some sort of, I don't know. Yeah, basically tag system aspects, I guess, from Fate, or something like that. So the fact that it's boldface makes me think that there's something mechanical to your contract. As you play your character, you can probably invoke things that are close to that. We'll find out. The contract grants all boggarts the unparalleled strength typical of their folk, as well as the ability to focus it, growing up to twice their size for short periods. Oh, cool. This practice is commonly known as going juggernaut, and there's an interesting anecdote about that nickname, but it'll have to wait. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's a burly dude. A boggart shroom cutter. I would be right. I know what I'm about. I know what's up. I'm building a reputation for knowing stuff. The counterpoint to this agreement is that all boggarts are bound by their word of honor. No littling of this folk can ever withdraw from a commitment or promise after giving their word, lest they incur terrible, terrible things. We'll talk more about this in Section 5 contracts. That's cool. That's fun. That's cool and fun. All right, the hearth. Is this analogous to the realm that we read for the other one? I think it is, so we will read it briefly. Before it ever became a nation, the hearth was the collective name for all boggarts who proudly served the master in exchange for a place in the house. After his disappearance, the boggart leader Benjamin Hearthworth, the same Big Ben featured in many stories, established the hearth as a nation with the aim of keeping the house safe until the master's return. Battle music removed from playlist. The hearth territories extend from the living room to most of Stairside and are mainly inhabited by boggarts. Okay, all right, pause. Look at this word Stairside. Let's come over here. Come on. Reading this book will teach you how to world build. I'm declaring that right now, okay? And what I mean by that is I watched a very, very, very good video a very long time ago, so I have no memory of it or could direct you to it if I tried. But it was about naming places, and it was about how names evolve in actual history, documented human history, how names of things evolve, and they grow and they change, but you can trace them back to their simple origins. I don't have a good example of this, and I wish I did. The point being, when you look at a word that's like Stairside is now a region, a thing. It's like, well, that's the place that's to the side of the stair. But the concept of calling it Stairside can be applied to mountainside in a fantasy world. And you could call a place Mountainside. And you'd be like, oh, that's kind of like on the nose, right? But you take Mountainside and you let it evolve. Like, think about how it would evolve over decades and centuries, if it's that long. And then you might get to something that's like Montsedia. And then, bam, there you have a fantasy name that like feels lived in and breathed in. So when you see things like Stairside, just because they're naming all of these things, but they're trying to make them seem fresh and fun and like alien to us, you know, it's all about the hearth and the Stairside and, you know, whatever else we're going to find. I would, if you're going to have this or read this, I would study it as a masterclass in world building. There you have it. The official capital is Walford, the borough. Despite that, many see the city of Cinderhall, like, again, Cinderhall. It's another perfect example. And this just seems like this book has gas to go on and on and on with these like names that like make sense. They communicate the reality, and they're also foreign but familiar. I think like that concept, and this is the second time I've said it so far, just reading this, foreign mixed with familiar is happening a lot in this text. So Cinderhall is located inside the fireplace. Wow, big surprise there. Like we already knew that just because of the name. That's good. That's good use of language. Okay. It has great historical and spiritual significance for the folk as a whole. The Hearth is a republic with strong military foundations. That being said, boggarts love and respect the Hearthworth family so much that the power has ipso facto been handed down Big Ben's line from father to son. Currently, the governor and grand general of the Hearth is William Bravespine Hearthworth Jr. The young fellow has also been granted a seat on the High Council under the title of Hearthkeeper. The national emblem is the flame of the fireplace, representing the familial bond with the master. Depicted beneath this emblem, you will often find crossed scissors, much like the ones used on military uniforms and tabs. These represent the honor and military strength of the nation. The official national motto is "Keep the flame burning." In all confidence, however, I can say that while lacking official recognition, the words dear to brave spine, "For the master is big, and these are such small matters," are widely used even by authorities. Let me finish reading this and we'll go back to it. The National Hearth Bank in Bookshire mints plates with brave spine's profile on one side and the hearth emblem on the other, while crystals show the crossed scissors on one side. The national language is Hearthish. The Hearth is a generally peaceful nation, characterized by wide rolling plains and the extensive pinewood forest. Settlements are few in number and scarcely populated, fully respecting boggart tradition. True bucolic oases where one can savor the simple pleasures of life. Okay, let's look at this. National Emblem of the Hearth. Okay. This is going to be one of your don't think about it too much things, which they kind of said in the beginning. We have crossed scissors as this emblem, and the scissor iconography of them using half of a scissor as a weapon, and it's tied to their military strength and everything like that. If you were to overthink this, you would say, how many pairs of scissors are there in a house? Like, I've got maybe 2 pairs of scissors up here in my studio. But how many scissors are in a household to the point where they could be so ubiquitous that they're like used by the whole military and it becomes a symbol? It's like, don't go there, don't think about it. So there is this kind of suspension of disbelief when you try to really apply, like, well, they're in a house. It's like, you know what? Just it's fantastical. Even though it's trying to be grounded, it's also fantastical. And we have these magical contracts and stuff, so you have to kind of let go of some of that. Okay, I think it being called Stairside and not somehow etymologically warped speaks to this being earlier history in the world. Yeah. It can also communicate that. Because, yeah, a lot of these names do have that youth to them, but I think that's in service, too, of making the text be approachable to us as players. And I'm talking about, in real life, publisher and us as consumer. Because there's so many layers to this. Because the book is, written in world and, okay, it gets confusing, but... Also, they can also just make them in the shape of a scissors, but you are totally right. Yeah. Yep. It occurs to me I forgot to post this stream to the other games channel in that other place. Oh well. Moving to the hearth. Boggart woman with a leaf bonnet. This is what I was going to say here. This paragraph right here. The official national motto is "Keep the flame burning." In all confidence, however, I can say that while lacking official recognition, the words dear to brave spine, "For the master is big, and these are such small matters," are widely used even by authorities. Okay. This is abstract. So we'll see how well I can communicate it. Because this is not about these specific words in this specific order. I have not read that many RPG books. I tell you guys that all the time. I've only read what I've read, and what I've read is what I've read. What is being communicated to me in the way that this is all being delivered so far is that there's such a strong sense of pride. You can imagine being a boggart, reading through this and being like, these are my people. We have things to be proud of. We were servants of the household. We are the keepers of the secret flame, whatever, Gandalf. In a way that generic fantasy books, genres, I'll even throw Pathfinder 2 under this bus, they're just like, these are dwarves. They like to forge things, and sometimes they do these kind of things, and it's very dry and not lived in. This is why one of my favorite Pathfinder books was one of the launch books. I don't think it was a launch book. It was shortly after they launched, and it was the Lost Omens character guide. Because the Lost Omens character guide, half of the book is garbage because it's about their stupid Galarian factions that I don't like. Half of the book is amazing because it is about types of dwarves, types of elves, types of humans. And I love that book for that reason, because you start to find out that, like, oh, there is a type of dwarf that's down in, like, the Assyrian region in the Golden Road of Avestan, or Garund, actually, and they're entirely different, called the Pommet dwarves. And they have an entirely different culture. When's the last time you ever saw a Pommet dwarf in a game? No. Every time you see a dwarf I'm being hyperbolic, sorry. Every time you see a dwarf in a game, it's the beard and the helm and the hammer or the axe. And it's like, okay, here's another one.
But it's like, no, there's other cool stuff out there. It doesn't get its time to shine. It happens rarely and only in these one-off books that are not in the core line here in Household. They're like, these are like people with a capital P, and they have a sense of pride and identity to them that you can read through the fairy section and you're like, that seems cool. I would like to be one of these. You read through this section, you're like, they seem cool. I would like to be one of these. And we've got 2 out of the 4 so far. So there you go. Sewing scissors, paper scissors, yarn scissors, hair scissors, scissor sisters. You are the connoisseur of the scissors. I think the art spread of each of the main cities is in the history chapter. Oh, let's definitely make sure we hit that. Oh gosh, I've been going for an hour already. Have I? Is that right? Wow. Okay. It helps when you tangent all of the time to make the time fly. Okay, sprites. Now, color study. We're very red and pink. We're going to be in the bathroom or the kitchen. Oh, that's right. There was something about the sprites to do with, they have 3 different kind of like maybe not classes of identity, but they have 3 different identities, and one of them is the drain. So these are going to be the guys that are in and out of the plumbing. And the house is empty, so it'll be dried up. Very interesting. I get less of a sense of identity from this art than I did from the boggart or the fairy, but that's okay. That's okay. I may have been reading into it too hard in the first place anyway, but it's fun, guys. This is the fun of close reads and analytical study, I think. The sprite folk has been living in the house since a time before memory, even before the master disappeared. To this day, there are many theories on the birth of sprites, and past years have seen a heated debate on whether sprites or boggarts were the first folk to ever enter the household. Nowadays, most people agree, though with some irony, that sprites walked through the threshold the day after the first boggart. Sprites are largely regarded, and regard themselves, as one folk. However, it is both clear and traditionally recognized by their culture that they are divided in 3 distinct groups. They are sylphs, undinis, and salamanders. Undinis are your water dudes, sylphs are your air dudes, salamanders are going to be your fire earth dudes. Before I go on to analyze the differences that solidified this separation in the minds of scholars, I think it proper to first underline the great similarities that make a single folk of these 3 groups, which, okay, going back here again, this communicates to me that we're going to be doing some elemental work. In theming, if not magic, or overt, like this one throws fireballs. Not necessarily. Not sure if I'm drawing too much meaning, but I definitely take note of the hot water being on ever so slightly. Oh, brilliant insight. That's really good, Copper. Damn. Have a hero point. That's a really cool observation. Okay. All right, hold on. All right, come back over here. So, okay, literary analysis, textual analysis, especially this happens a lot in poetry, is that you'll have analysts that will read things into the poem that weren't necessarily intentionally put there by the author, and then you get into the whole discussion about the death of the author and like, can a poem mean more than the author meant it to? And if it's good for those reasons, does that mean that the poet is a good poet, or does that mean that they just accidentally stumbled into something cool that somebody else found later? And then now that it's been found and it's in the collective consciousness, is it part of the identity of the poem, or is it not part of the identity of the poem? My approach to this has been, fuck it, find cool things. The consumption of art can be the creation of art itself. Analysis can be an art of itself. So you sharing that detail about this hot water tap being slightly turned on and having to do possibly with heat, emotion, passion, we'll see. But they're fun theories because you go into it with a theory, and whether you're right or wrong is not the point. It's about having fun and engaging, and I think that was an absolutely brilliant thing for you to say. And seriously, I want to draw really good attention to it because that's what this shit is all about. For me. Good job, Copper. Good job. All sprites share an ancestral bond with one of the household forces, be it water, air, or fire. Yes, we nailed it. Through decades, this bond left a clear mark on the physical appearance of sprites. But despite their visual differences, sprites share a common culture and medical literature. What? Very interesting. Excuse me. They all follow the same customs, share gastronomic traditions, and celebrate the festivities in either identical or inextricably interwoven ways. Their shared cultural heritage has been regarded as far more important than the different hues of their skins throughout history, at least by wiser littlings. Okay, we've got medical literature, we've got gastronomic traditions. These feel like they are going to be very imbued with, like, capital L life. Like they are a lively people is what I'm getting from this. What's up, Say? How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't seen you stream in a while. I know you've been streaming, but I've always missed them. I've missed hanging out with you. I need to catch one someday. Soon. Soon. Say is a fairy, a flower fairy, VTuber. So actually, Say, you probably would really, God, you would probably love this book. Honest to God. So, yeah. Okay, we've got to do, I know we weren't going to do subcategories, but we got to do it for these guys because they're different. Out of the draft came the sylphs. Right. Of course, the vents. Of course, and then the drain, and then these guys are going to be the spark. Yep. Is that going to be electricity? Did they have electricity? Okay, all right, getting ahead of ourselves. Is this a battle song? It is. I'm going to leave it, though. I'm going to leave this one in the playlist. Out of the draft came the sylphs, who stand out among other sprites because of their thin, hollow bones and proverbial lightness. They are generally very tall, although with the expected exceptions, and remarkably slim. Slanderous gossips also maintain that this physicality means sylphs all around make for suspiciously good robbers and thieves. Their hair is puffy and voluminous, a great source of pride for many women. Men grow no beard and prefer keeping their hair tied in braids or buns, with some even choosing to shave completely. Also, okay, there was a note in the fairies about their blood. We probably missed it in the boggarts. Here again, we have the blood, which to me says that this is going to be relevant in a way that, who was it? It's not Aristotelian. There was an ancient philosopher who believed that the temperaments and the personalities of people were determined by the main fluids in the body, and that's where you get the original. If you've ever done a personality study that is in a 4-matrix study, it's actually a reproduction of this same idea years and years and years and years over and over and over again. And different business books and different personality books will take the exact same model, whether they know it or not, and they'll reproduce it again. But the original goes back to sanguine, which is your lively personality. In another system, it's called the yellow. In another, it's called the... Oh, it's not the driver. Anyway, I've gone through many of these systems over my professional life. Sanguine being like of the blood and like very lively and energetic. And then there's choleric for like, I forget exactly where it comes from. And then melancholic. And then, what is the fourth one in that system? Phlegmatic, which is literally like, it sounds gross, but like phlegm, like slow, languid, like casual, like relaxed people who don't do well at high vibrations, high frequencies. They're much more steady. So anyway, seeing this mention of their blood color and drawing attention to the blood of the different races. Do they call them races? I forget. Yes, the 4 humors. Thank you guys. Yes. Drawing attention to that, and the fact that we have 4 is very interesting to me. And I would probably go back and do some more textual study of that to see if there's a commentary on that. Because now that I think about it, if these guys are our sanguines, if I was just to match them right now, the boggarts would be probably the phlegmatics. Anyway, it's interesting. It's very fascinating. They just call them folk. Okay, you're right. Yeah. Hippocrates was a big one for it. I think that is the name that I've seen associated with it. Yes, thank you. I knew I had the smart people around to straighten me out. Undinis. Out of the drain rose the Undinis, who in contrast are usually short and stout with shiny, bulging muscles due to their natural water retention. Interesting. The bowed posture of their backs does no favor to their already short stature, giving way to the cliche that Undinis should be measured by width rather than height. What? Many Undinis have thin, light hair that, according to some, looks like foaming water, but a few grow black hair with greenish or bluish tints. Men usually boast wide beards, imposing sideburns, or a twirling mustache. Interesting. Look at these guys. This is not what I expected. Huh. Very interesting. Got tattoos of coins on him. Salamanders. Out of the spark, salamanders were born. They stand out amongst other sprites because of their warm tones of their skin and hair. Their eyes are deep and bright, considered by many as a sign of intelligence and charm. In common perception, all salamanders wear glasses. This is more than just prejudice, you see, as these littlings are statistically prone to developing nearsightedness. As a consequence of this tendency, they also developed a fascination with the accessory, which means that many salamanders wear glasses with showy frames, whether they need them or not. As you certainly know, many famous salamanders are scientists and politicians, and this group is on average less prone to the military life, perhaps because of their delicate frames. There are, however, several exceptions, and I'm sure you also know in full detail the great deeds of Lazarus Malachior also known as the Smiling Salamander, who has well earned his fame as the most lethal gunslinger in the house. Okay. So they're your kind of scientist alchemy kind of Izette. If you're going Ravnica, Magic in the Gathering. Magic in the Gathering. Oh my god. Yeah, she just said Magic in the Gathering. It's Saturday morning. What do you want from me? So interesting. Very cool. I don't know what the spark is about in the translation to the house. I'm intrigued by this. But I'm not going to read enough to figure it out. A self man playing flute while a salamander woman studies a mushroom. Cool. I love this, by the way. Check this out. This little streak of, like, fire red through her hair. Very cute. Okay, the hereditary contract. Upon birth, all sprites inherit a contract that first tied their ancestors to the household forces. Each self knows they came out of the draft and is granted by their bond to household air both the lightness of their folk and the gift of bloating. Each Undini knows they came out of the drain and is granted by their bond to household water both the heftiness of their folk and the gift of water retention. Each salamander knows they came out of the spark and is granted by their bond to household fire. Okay. Both the promptness of their folk and the gift of enlightenment. So I wonder if there's much overlap and interaction between salamander sprites and boggarts who inherit the hearth. One would think. One would think. Ooh, there. I got my ribs to crack. Hope that didn't come through. Okay. The counterpart is identical for all sprites who are bound by the coin accepted as payment. Right, they said earlier on, trust a sprite if you pay them to do something. All littlings of this folk have to stay true to any written or oral agreement in which, after regular and free negotiation, they accept any sum of money in exchange of services. If they ever fail to comply, they face terrible, terrible things. This is a phrase that we've seen now twice. We'll talk more about this in Section 5 Contracts, where we will learn, I'm sure, about terrible, terrible things. Cool. Free dominions. Since the agreement with then Emperor of the House Oberon Trismegistus, who is a fairy, and father of current ruler Avila, something, whom some call dearly departed, sprites have full control over the upper floor. There, they founded the free dominions on the idea of equality among all folks. Known to many as the Freedoms, this is a confederation which includes the lands of the master bedroom, the bathroom, and the smaller bedroom. The capital is Beddingham, universally famous for its sprawling market, but Tuberdam is the hub of is the hub of political life. United we advance, Dr. Werner Reinhardt. The free dominions are ruled by a small circle of scholars known as the Symposium. The esteemed rector of the Symposium is Professor Werner Reinhardt, a brilliant Undini who takes on the mantle of Primus Inter Pares. Despite having stepped down long ago from his seat at the Symposium, Wise Paracelsus still holds the title of spokesperson of the Free Dominions as representative of sprites in the High Council and remains an invaluable anchor for the nation. Tuberdam is amazing. We'll have to see those cities. The national emblem depicts 3 crossed keys symbolizing sylphs, salamanders, and undinis. The national motto of the Freedoms, as carved on the table at the Symposium, is E Pluribus Unum, out of one many. The household central bank of the Free Dominions in Roosevelt mints plates and crystals with the national emblem and motto on one side and various mushrooms or Paracelsus's profile on the other. It is also the place where most of the banknotes of the house are printed. The national language is Sprigalic. Cool. Very cool. Undini woman at work. See, this too, you need to not think about it, okay? Because we know the scale of these people is akin roughly to the size of the spine of a large book. And yet we don't have plumbing fixtures this small that do anything with water. Not in modern times anyway. Clearly this isn't modern times, but still, like, what is this? This is less than a 1/4 inch tubing. You're not gonna... Anyway. It's fun to look at. You just, like, have fun looking at it and have fun not overthinking it, even if thinking through it is fun for you. Don't let it ruin your life. I think my hunting spider likes this stream. He keeps like circling around the edge of the monitor and then jumping to the other monitor and going down the other side. I don't know what he's looking for. All right, the slaw. Now, interesting, because I would have associated the pipes with the undinis because they have the out of the drain element to them, right? But we do have brown earthen tones here, a little bit of red. Of course, we have the red, kind of the rust color here, but there's a little bit of red in the detail here. We do have kind of this elegant, like swooping thing here. So it's a little less elegant than the fairy, but more so than the boggarts. Let's go back to sprites. Sprites are actually quite boxy, quite sharp lines. Very interesting. Okay. The Slaw folk arrived in the house many years after the master's disappearance. Treaties tell us that they came from a place so far that nobody even remembers it, and they call it Far Beyond. The day the Slaw entered the house is known as Samhain, but some traditions also refer to it as the Wild Hunt. As we all know, the first period of coexistence between the Slaw and the other household folks was less than peaceful, and to this day, the many prejudices, rumors, and falsehoods against the Slaw are proving hard to eradicate. It is hard to define what Slaw are, as possibly their main trait is their heterogeneity. A Slaw could be half as tall as a fairy, while the next could be even taller than a boggart. Their skin can go from ghostly white to shiny black and spans many hues of greens, brown, purple, and red. As a rule, the Slaw have long pointy ears that can either stand straight and rigid or droop downward, and dark eyes that are extremely small or way too large for their face. The one thing one should never expect in a Slaw's appearance is moderation. Very rarely, littlings from this folk adhere to common proportions and standards of beauty. But inside, all Slaw are the same. They indeed all have the same black, tacky blood flowing through the veins, a peculiarity that makes them extremely resistant, if not immune, to most known poisons and illnesses. Their dark blood has sadly also been interpreted by many busybodies as a sign of evil character. In some areas, less cultured people still use this folk as the evil characters of stories, a threat to scare children into good behavior because Slaw will come and get you. This reproachable habit goes on to fuel tensions among folks and is an indecorous, that's a fun word. Never seen that word before. I like it. Hurdle to Slaw integration even amongst new generations. Very neat. Very neat. Anyway, there's I might be speaking out of turn here. I might be having this entirely wrong, but I feel like there is a callback to Moorishness from North Africa, as that those cultures blended or whatever they did. I'm not a historian, but there were cultural challenges for sure. What is it? Othello, the Moor of Venice. You get that vibe from this headdress here. This has like to me, again, apologies if I say any of this out of turn. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm not a cultural historian or anything like that, but this gives me a North Africa vibe. So, I've been to Spain. There's my credentials. I've been to Spain. And I know there was some like Moroccan tea and all sorts of cool stuff there. Okay, we have not been reading the culture section. Okay, so we have the Slaw folk, so they can be quite distinguished and different, which is the point, right? Very cool. Yeah, there's definitely, a little bit of Arabic influence here. Again, if I'm using the wrong words, apologies. Correct me if you know, or fix it in the comments. I'm driving that engagement. Love the open shade being thrown about colorism. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how to go there quite, but, they're like, oh, it's the blood. But this goes to, and this is, okay. All right, come on over here. I haven't held up this book in a while. In early drafts of Girl by Moonlight, Andrew Gillis wrote the oppositional forces as the darkness. Because that's very common, like darkness, evil, in fantasy literature and into anime tropes. And, Girl by Moonlight definitely has its touch points in there. And I recall it was either in a podcast that Andrew was on, or it was in an article I read about Girl by Moonlight, something to the point, and I brought this up elsewhere in streams where I've talked about Girl by Moonlight. One of these days I need to do an actual stream about this game. But about how they intentionally went through and scrubbed the word darkness out because of those connotations, because there were people in the community who were advising them, like, hey, like, just so you know, like, this is a pervasive way of forming this dichotomy of attaching darkness to good and evil, and that has been used. We're not saying anybody is meaning to use it this way, but it has been used by people in the past and even into the present to be a commentary on darkness of skin tone. And it just happens to be an overlap that we can be conscious of and came up with new things. And that's why in Girl by Moonlight you see things referred to as the abyss or the adversary, intentionally, because Andrew didn't want to perpetuate this challenge with language where it gets attached to these unfortunate historical touch points. How did I dent the cover of this book? That's very sad. Anyway, so yeah, when I read that about the slaw and their blood just now, I was like, there it is. They're saying, like, yeah, they're being unfairly judged as a sign of evil character. It's a way of getting around saying, like, hey guys, it's about skin color again, but saying, like, oh no, it's about their blood, but it's the same thing. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable that they're being judged for their blood color, maybe it should make you be uncomfortable if people are judged for their skin color. So I think that was really well done and understated and not in your face and, like, very clever. And there's been other elements of prejudice and things that have been addressed already through the other folk as well. So it's you could tell this was written by very smart people. Yeah, even Tolkien was regretful how he presented to orcs as being dark creatures because he realized the connotations. Well, and we've had the recent, the biological essentialism and yada, yada, yada. And then people being like, oh, orcs are, analogs for black people, and then people are like, no, they aren't, and it spawned this whole argument. And it's like, you know what, let's at least have the conversation and talk about it, and then try and just come up with language that we can all feel proud about today and hopefully 10-20 years from now as well. I love how a good sensitivity read can promote more rich lore and creativity. Indeed. All right, my jumping spider's going to jump again. Do it, dude. I'm going to look away, and then he's going to be on the other monitor, and I'm going to miss it. It's crazy how fast they jump. Anyway. All right, jumping spider. You keep your secrets. He's literally been cruising my monitors this entire stream. He's just, like, walking around. Okay, here's the contract. Upon birth, all slaw inherit a contract signed in times before memory with a great and ancient nameless force. In virtue of this deal, each of them received the strength to survive and prosper in far beyond. In exchange, they had to forfeit all chances to leave their scores unsettled. Ooh. Still today, all slaw are known to be revenant from far beyond, in memory of the long journey that led them back into the house. By the power of this contract, the slaw have become unbleeding and gained the extraordinary ability to heal even mortal wounds. This gift made them fearsome warriors during the First Household War. Yeah, I bet. Do it, Spider. Don't leave the monitor. Where are you going? Well, it'll be sad if he leaves us. The counterpart of their contract is debt. All slaw must honor any debt incurred after losing a bet if they wish to avoid terrible, terrible things. Interesting. We'll talk more about this in Section 5 contracts. Yes. Look at that key. That's awesome. Oh, it's also been fashioned into a gun. Wild. Wild. Horde. Decades after the Master's disappearance on the first night of Samhain, the 27 Slaw tribes reached the house. Decades after and 27 tribes. Wow. Okay, wait. No, I'm not going to make that theory. It took a long time after Kublai Khan managed to unite them all under the same flag, founding the Horde of the Great Blade. The Horde lands, mainly inhabited by the Slaw, span from the Quivering Stairs through the entire basement, and they're also known as the Lower Dominions or House Below. Oh, House Below. What a great word. Again, going back to our stair side conversation, Cinder Hall, House Below. This feels Pentacles coded from Tarot too. Possibly. I would need to read up more about that, but that's very interesting, yeah. More so than the sprites who have the whole, like, payment thing? I don't know. I haven't really studied my actual tarot book that came with my deck, because I really just used it to play Ballads of Dawn, but someday it would be fun to learn more about it. Okay, the capital is Al-Sahir. So look, we have Al, which means land of, right? Doesn't it? Isn't that what Al means? In Arabic? Help. Somebody help me. So we do have that Middle Eastern, North African coming into the house, also coming into Europe, and then being suspect, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Having a hard time integrating is the vibe that I'm getting here. Again, not a historian. Sorry if I say anything offensive. It's okay. Just correct me. It's fine. The Rusted City, which is also the most populated city of the household. The Horde is a khanate ruled by Khan Villanero Arsenio Voltoyo Rodomonte, the mysterious slaw known to many as Capitano Rodomonte. So we're going into like now Spain influence, right? So Iberian Peninsula stuff. Again, with the Mediterranean Sea crossing and all that stuff. It means of. Okay. Oh, yeah. Of. Got it. The Horde is a content. History is the littling who put an end to the First Household War and thus earned his seat on the High Council. The national emblem is the serrated circular blade, a stylized representation of the great blade that dominates the capital. On banners, and especially in times of war, the blade is usually flanked by a peculiar horned skull, the insignia of the Skull Riders. Okay, we gotta read this. They call us savages, yet they've never seen the red spires of Al-Sahir, the pure white silk of Samarachnid, nor the green water in Velicia, reflecting the light of the sunset. Lio the Handsome. This calls back again to like, the pervasive notion that Middle East was barbaric and everything. Whatever was used to justify crusades years over decades, over centuries. Whereas actually, a lot of the hallmarks of academia, so on and so forth, come from the Middle East. Again, guys, sorry, I'm just like, I'm spewing just vibe things that I kind of know. Anyway, the national motto is Al-Majd Lil Minshar, Al-Majd Lil Khan, glory to the great blade, glory to the Khan. The Khan treasury in Al-Sahir mince plates with the circular blade on one side and a spider web on the other to circulate in the Horde. What's funny? I picked up on spider here. It's the spider web elements. I picked up on it here because Samarkand is a thing, but Samarachnid is like a play on that. Anyway, it's cool. Still, you will probably find coins from all nations are widely used in the nation, with some old plates with the worn-out profile of the late Kublai Khan still appearing here and there. The national language is Slugan. The Horde lands lie beyond the long hallway and are, as such, far from all other nations. The rapidly growing numbers of the population, the many riches accumulated, and the long period of peace have made those territories extremely fascinating for both tourists and new investors. Nowadays, most handcrafted products and natural or mined materials come from the Horde, and people of all places are beginning to admire their artistic and cultural heritage. Very cool. Very cool. I will say of the emblems, I think this is the weakest of them. It just has less... It tells me less about the people, right? Okay, so let me show you this. Again, it's just keys, right? But there's 3, and the 3 represent the 3 different types of sprites, so it like tells me more. The hearth, really communicates where their home is. I don't know what the star even means. So, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't actually have a good justification for why this one isn't hitting as hard for me. Serrated blade. Stylish representation of the great blade that dominates the capital. Wait a second. Is there a giant fan down there? Okay. Okay. There might be something to that. Okay, that might make it click for me. She is adorable. Oh my god. A slaw with her spitting top. Oh my god. What a beautiful, gorgeous character design. Holy crap, I could just stare at this for hours. It'll make sense when you see the art of the city. I just got that. I was like, the Great Blade. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Something's going on here that we'll see visually in a minute. You know what's great also is we've been skipping this, but I just kind of saw it at the corner of my eye. Moving to the Horde. There was a moving to the blank for each of these, and it does tell you what it would look like if you're a sprite who moved here, or if you're a fairy who moved here, or if you're a boggart who moved here, and what it looks like to be any of those folk in your not traditional home, which is cool. Very cool. So there's going to be some sort of conception. If you read through all of this, you're going to get a sense for how much cultural transition there has been at the point that we're in years 97 to 101 MG, which is Master Gone. So even though it's, year 0 of, it's not household calendar. What did we figure out it was? I forgot already. We're about 100 years in of these cultures being allowed to develop. And we're decades in before these guys showed up. Decades after. Decades plural. Kind of makes me feel at least 3. So maybe as many as 70-ish years that even the Horde have been, not the Horde, the Slaw have been integrated in. High Council. Thank you, Thaddeus. Thank you. Okay. Ooh, look at this. Okay. We should be able to apply what we know and figure out who these people are. From her, I get Slaw vibes, and it's because of the clothing, which is maybe unfair because we know that people move to these different places. She's got, what, a thimble? And this guy is giving off fairy vibes because he has that very European, regalness to him. Mounted cavalry kind of dude. So that's the vibe I'm feeling there. What is he handing her? Or vice versa? What is that? Is that a little critter? Some sort of artifact or some kind? Anyway. Art's good when you can stare at it and just hypothesize. Chapter 2! We're an hour and a half in. And we got to Chapter 2. Actually, point of order. 43 pages in an hour and a half is pretty fast paced for London Station. Pretty fast. Now, I'm going to get strategic here because I'm going to say, Thaddeus, I think we're getting a second stream out of this because I kind of don't even want to look at mechanics today. I'm kind of not even feeling it. I'm like, I want to marinate in everything else so far. Another wild thing is, there's been nothing here so far that has made me want to play this as a game, and I don't say that as a bad thing. I just mean I'm this engaged without even the consideration of there being a game. This has just been delightful to read and experience. There you go. So it very well might be that we might get to the game parts, and then I just kind of go just use Legend in the Mist and run it in this setting, that would be baller, wouldn't it, Thaddeus? That would be great. You could totally skip them for now. Yeah, because I'm reading the room. I'm reading the tone of my own stream. Oh, by the way, has chat not been showing up on stream this entire time? Hold on, is it showing up over here? I don't know why it wouldn't be. I don't think I did any changes to it. Hopefully it comes up now. Definitely look at the art for the cities, the contract chapter, and then the adventure. Yes, we will do that. But now I don't have to rush. Where is my chat? Oh, here we go. Why would my elements have died? Sorry, guys. I didn't realize. I did not realize. That's my bad. Sorry, VOD watchers. Hopefully do the thing where YouTube lets you see the live chat. Y'all need to yell at me more than you do. I refreshed the element. Why is it not? We troubleshot this the other day, didn't we? There's no way that the browser source URL changed. Alright, we're going to take a break. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out because now we know we're not in a rush. Go into Stream Elements and see what the heck is going on. How are y'all doing? How's your morning? Hope you're having a good time. Sorry, I was so excited about household I didn't notice. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to my chat overlay. There's my 2-up. My chat break. And chat full and chat small. Okay, I don't love this. They all have this little recent tag. I wonder if YouTube changed something and it broke the because it's not even showing up here, and I think it usually shows up in stream elements when I'm doing it. Hold on. How do I refresh this? Settings? Do you know I could block people? This music is perfect for the crisis of chat not showing up. I don't know. I'm not seeing something obviously wrong here. It does feel like it's an integration problem. Let me try and recreate it. Let's see, I'm on the one up. Where do I even grab this from? Your stream's chat. Boom. I can put it right here. Turn off the delay. All the settings are going to be wrong, though. That's not showing up either. Weird. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Well, I guess if you guys had brought this to my attention earlier, it looks like I would not have been able to figure it out and fix it anyway, so... Oh well. I don't get it, though. I do not understand. I guess, okay, could it be possible that the overlay URLs changed? I guess that could be possible. It should still be showing up. Nope, that's the same URL. Huh. Disappointing. I guess we'll fix that later. You feel vindicated by your engagement with Household? Well, I feel vindicated that I'm not going to get a visit from you. We could visit for more fun things. Alright, it is what it is. Sorry that the chat's not coming up, everybody. Do not know what to tell you about that. We'll have to troubleshoot later. In any case, okay, where am I now? Let's see. There's my stream. I can close that. I don't need this window open. And we're back to the PDF. There we go. Okay. We're not going to look at your character chapter. We're not going to look at the professions chapter. We're not going to look at the how to play chapter. Those things will all be on a second stream. Which, you know, for any reason I can't think of why it wouldn't just be next Saturday's stream. So we'll probably do it then. Don't hold me to that, but that's what I'm thinking. Tomorrow, by the way, if you're not aware, tomorrow we're going to be talking about death in RPGs, the broad concept of death, mechanically, narratively, thematically, all of the above. We're going to get the whiteboard out, and we're going to draw a bunch of nonsense. It's going to be good. However, we're on to contracts, or we will be, because I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll be back in just a few minutes. So, enjoy one of my new songs that I put on the break screen. And I'll be back soon. Except I'm not making food. That was from a different stream. I don't even know where that banner went. There it is. Okay, be right back. All right, team, we're back. We are back. Thaddeus has been proven right. It'll be interesting. Oh, sorry, double music. It'll be interesting when I do look at this mechanically, because this is so rich that, again, who cares about the mechanics? I could run this using the new Sage system. I could run this using Legend of the Mist. Doesn't even matter. Now, I will say, don't get too excited, because I'm not like jonesing to actually play in this world. I'm enjoying this as like an academic read, and it's been like amazing. But we might find some very interesting mechanical things in stream number 2 that change my mind on that. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Subscribe, follow, add comments, leave likes, do things, do whatever. Anyway, let's get back into it. Again, I'm irritated that my chat's not working, but we'll just power through. We will power through. Contracts and how to stipulate them. This is going to be one of the core things about the game. Also of interest, we have the candelabra here, the sconce, I guess you would call this, which was associated visually earlier with the fairy. What do we have in these? Got mechanical gears and such. That feels more boggart. I don't know. Oh, the scissors are boggart for sure. Pen and quill is nobody. The bee is nobody in particular. Anyway, I'm just reading too much into it because it's fun. You can't stop me. Here we go. The household and outhold forces have complete control over everything. All that walks, flies, slithers, or climbs can do so only by their kind concession. Each force only cares about expanding its own dominion. There's always a price to pay for all that they grant, and there is no escaping that. Argo, the bureaucrat. See, I love doing dramatic readings. I need to read more of my poetry on streams. Many have tried to find an explanation for the complex nature of contracts. Most of them either gave up or lost their minds. Ooh. The fact that these greater forces, you could call them ancestral, are above us and have power over all that we are and all that we do. Just as a bee could never fly if air chose to disallow it to, wild, a gecko could never walk on a ceiling that didn't want to be walked on, equally wild. In sum, everything that exists and functions in the house exists and functions because of dozens and hundreds of contracts signed with great forces like the fire, the water, the air, the walls, the dark, the stairs, the silence, and so on and so forth and so further. Wow. Wow. Okay. Huh. Okay. Where to even start? There is... I don't have the words for this, unfortunately. A bee could never fly if air chose to disallow it to. Goes back to like a mythical understanding of world forces. And as we have advanced into the scientific age, we now say air is air is in the gas form of matter, but gases are also fluids in the way that their molecules are loosely associated and contained. And the ability to fly through air is because it is a fluid of sorts. And the nature of it being what it is what allows you to fly through it because of different pressure differences or what have you. You know, the aerodynamics of the shape of a wing that causes lift, that allows an airplane to fly, for example. It is equally salient to say that you can't fly if air doesn't allow you to because there's a contract with air, as it is to say you're able to fly through air because of its nature as a gas or a fluid, which you can engineer ways to utilize pressure and lift and forces of physics so as to fly. It's two different ways to say the same thing. And yet, this here is saying a gecko could never walk on a ceiling that didn't want to be walked on, and that's because the state of the solid of the ceiling is as of such that it has enough surface area in its molecules that are protruding, because nothing is a smooth surface. Everything is bumpy and rigid, and that's how things grip things, is they have the things that they need to grip those things. So a ceiling that didn't want to be walked on would not be able to be walked on, And here it's a contract, but elsewhere we know in the physical world that it is an expression of physics and interactions. And yet they're the same. It's the same. It's just a different lens through which to look at the world. In this, mythical is maybe not the right word. I wish I had a better word for it, but those two paragraphs did a lot of work to explain the metaphysical beliefs of how the world works. Do these contracts actually exist? Does it matter? We don't know. Okay, all right, there you go. Littlings and contracts. Every littling can rely on the power of at least one contract, which binds them to one of the forces of the household or outhold. By the power of this contract, they obtain a concession, granting amazing, almost supernatural abilities. In exchange, they commit to always keep to a counterpart, a small token to pay in exchange for the goodwill of greater forces. All those who dare fail to keep their side of a contract, sooner or later, end up facing a series of terrible, terrible things that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I just had a moment of panic. I was like, is my microphone muted? It's not. Concession and counterpart. Contracts are divided in two sections, concession and counterpart. Concession, we just read that. We get it. Okay, we'll see examples. Counterpart, okay, got it. Terrible, terrible things. The T3. When a littling violates a counterpart, on top of immediately losing the concession of the contract, they begin to draw bizarre and unbelievable events we call terrible, terrible things. Some have been attacked by a huntsman spider in the middle of a great gala. Others had their weapons and armor crumble in the midst of battle. Others still ended up tongue-tied in the middle of an important speech, or had their legs paralyzed in the middle of an escape, and who knows what other absurdities I can't even imagine. That is wild. Stipulating a contract. First of all, we need to talk about the different types of contracts. Hereditary contracts, which is by your folk. Personal contracts between an individual and a force. Fun. Welcoming contracts, essential to gain entrance into specific places. Hereditary contracts are the ancient pacts that bind each little folk to a greater or ancestral force. Each character can rely on a hereditary contract depending on their folk of origin. This is why boggarts can rely on the dear to the hearth contract since birth, and why all Undinis know they came out of the drain. Popular belief is that hereditary contracts are always inherited from the mother. Popular belief, not fact. As such, the child of a sloth father and a fairy mother is born with the star child hereditary contract and is, for all intents and purposes, a fairy. However, this is only a generalization with several known exceptions. Once again, the book reinforcing that there are exceptions to everything, and maybe you shouldn't judge people. Personal contracts, as the name suggests, are deals made personally with a force by an individual. These are extremely unique deals that offer supernatural powers. To stipulate a personal contract, your character needs to have a decent contractual power, which is to say, they should have something the Force desires, or be valiant enough to have caught the Force's attention. Wild. Welcoming contracts, finally, grant you access to places that you could never hope to enter or survive if not for the goodwill of a Force. These are places like the Fireplace Hollow, where a littling without a kindled welcoming contract would immediately burst into flames. Wow. To stipulate a welcoming contract, one has to get permission from the owner or keeper of the place they wish to enter, and then follow a long list of rules of conduct. Also love the mention that interfolk romantic relationships are a thing. Absolutely. Well, it didn't imply romance, technically, Thaddeus. Just, biophysical compatibility. Every littling of the household receives a hereditary contract upon birth, formalizing their kinship with one of the folk and granting them all characteristics and abilities of their folk. Hereditary contracts are Star Child, Dear to the Hearth, Out of the Draft, the Drain, or the Spark, and Revenant from Far Beyond. Every littling is bound to honor their commitments so long as they are, as the saying goes, freely made, and I need to be clear about this. A commitment is considered void if bound by deceit or by force. For example, a fairy who is physically forced to sign an agreement is not expected to keep it, and they face no terrible, terrible things. You cannot sign contracts under duress. I'm sure the romance is there. I'm just being a pedant. Sorry. Oh, I've got to highlight that, right? Because nobody can see the chat. There you go. Thaddeus says, fair enough. However, coercion and cunning can still play a role and put a littling into the uncomfortable situation where they have to do something against their will. For example, a boggart who gives their word under duress, or a sprite who accepts payment to transport an insect only to later find out that that insect is a spurred centipede, are both required to honor their commitment if they wish to avoid the aforementioned terrible, terrible things. Okay. Coercion and cunning can still play a role and put them in a position where they have to do something against their will. So you can't physically force it. So they can be coerced or tricked, but they can't be outright lied to or forced, is what I'm getting from this. So you can do it under duress. I'm a little confused. We'll see. We should never forget that all littlings of the house are bound to honor their commitments as determined by their hereditary contract. As such, it is considered egregiously rude to impose oneself too much, repeatedly harassing a littling to sign or promise something. It's just not something you do. No means no. Star Child. And again, we're back to the fairy theming. Like stars ever in the sky, weightless and fearless, shining sovereigns of the night, bright heart of the day. Like stars, unmovable and unwavering, with ever-true names travelers can rely on. They say that when the master first began building the house, the littlings who lived on that land divided into 4 folk. The fairy folk decided to seek refuge in a large tree growing in the garden, and they gave the name Dendroneos, the temple tree. And in this tree, as the seasons turned, the fairies built a sprawling city, always taking care to show respect to their verdant host. Divided from other littlings, the fairies often fell victims to wild insects and squirrels, and also became easy game for birds of prey and their talons. With no one else to turn to, they turned to the stars shining in the night and stipulated a historical contract with them. So the bright glint of starlight was caught in their eyes, and the fairies received a pair of quick wings, which they could use to escape their enemies and fight back. In exchange, each of them was asked to utter their name, so it may be carved in the firmament. Right on. So they got wings. Concession wings. Ooh, there's kissing. Instant upgrade to the book. Fairies are born with charming and colorful wings, like those of a dragonfly or similarly dainty insect. Thanks to those wonderful wings, fairies can take to the air with ease and reach places that would otherwise be beyond reach. When moving upward, fairies travel at the same speed at which they walk. When flying horizontally, on the other hand, they are faster and can even reach the speed at which one could run. So long as they are in the air, fairies suffer -1 when rolling to dodge bullets or other projectiles. Additionally, their wings emit a loud buzzing sound which hinders their attempts at stealth. This is funny because this is the first mechanical thing we've read because we skipped so much. So I'm like, -1? Like, why are you talking about numbers? This is really great art, though. This is wonderful. I like the I don't know. It makes my heart happy. Pictured here, 2 fairies kissing while flying. Yeah, hell yeah, do it while flying. Counterpart, name. All fairies are bound to honor agreements they choose to undersign firsthand with their name. If they ever fail to do so, they'll inevitably face terrible, terrible things. You kissing but yay mixed couple. Listen, D-Priest. It's a beautiful piece of art. They're beautiful people. And they're locking lips. What more could you want? Dear to the hearth. The righteous need strength to carry the weight of truth. They say that when the master first began building the house, the littlings who lived on that land divided into 4 folk. The boggarts saw that the master was big, and once the house was built, they decided to live in there with him. To repay the master's warm hospitality, these good-natured littlings got to work and faithfully served the family. However, boggarts weren't strong enough to keep at bay the large spiders threatening their homes hidden in the walls, and they spent their nights in terror. I was going to comment on the dress. It is a beautiful dress. Something for everyone. I'll allow it. You bet you will allow it. This is London Station, girl. Been lurking on mobile for a bit, but now I am on PC. Missed a lot of the stream. The contract stuff is really cool. Well. It'll be here for posterity. However, boggarts weren't strong enough to keep. I read that. With no one else to turn to, they turned to the household fire burning fat and strong in the fireplace hollow and made an age-old deal. So, boggarts received the gift of growing and the strength of 100 littlings. In exchange, they were asked to renounce all lowness and dishonesty that could be seen as unworthy of the family who welcomed them near the hearth. Judd in the Jug. Oh, Juggernaut, yeah. Boggart ability of doubling their size and muscle mass for a short stretch of time is commonly known as going juggernaut. Improbable etymology, huh? Apparently there was a very curious sprite, interested in science. It went juggernaut, moving the jug to the edge and sending it crashing down. That's funny. Thus, the legend of Judd going juggernaut in the jug was born. That's funny. Dear to the hearth. Oh, that's a strong dude. Strong dude. Concession juggernaut. Once per session, boggarts can go juggernaut, drastically increasing their size, strength, and resistance. When going juggernaut, boggarts can grow up to twice their size, and their bodies ripple with powerful muscles as hard as numismatic metal. The hell is that? Going juggernaut is helpful for all rolls made in the field of war, but hindering for any other actions. We have a boon and a bane thing that we're going to read about next stream. During combat, juggernaut boggarts always have +1 to all their action and reaction rolls. Additionally, juggernaut boggarts always ignore all conditions. That seems good. When going juggernaut, boggarts automatically lose 1 level of decorum as they tear through any precious items of clothing or armor they are wearing. They remain in juggernaut for a maximum of 5 turns, but can choose to voluntarily lose their status at any time. When they stop juggernauting, boggarts receive the tired condition if they don't have it already. It's very barbarian coded. Also, we have turns, which we need not have presumed. Counterpart, word of honor. Boggarts are always bound to keep their word of honor. If they ever fail to honor a promise they uttered explicitly, they inevitably fall victim to terrible, terrible things. Pictured here, a juggernauting boggart helps a ladybug. Now look at the size of these buttons. See, everything in the scale gets all kind of crazy. These are the buttons from his shirt. Oh, because they're... Right. These are littling buttons, not master size buttons. Got it. Got it. Spark, drain, and draft. For all that depress in depth, for all that craves heights and vertigo, for all that is ever changing and ever wanting. They say that when the master first began building the house, the littlings who lived on that land divided into 4 folk. Sprites noticed how big the master was and decided they would live in his shadow, hidden within the walls of the house. Forced to steal from the pantry and move constantly in order to survive, sprites turned to the house itself and its forces. Some went to the fire in the fireplace hollow, obtaining the fickleness of the spark and the gift of enlightenment, and they became salamanders. Some went to the water in the depths of the piping, obtaining the heft of the drain and the gift of water retention, and they became undinis. Finally, some went to the air in the great window, obtaining the lightness of the draught and the gift of bloating, and they became sylphs. All of them had to renounce dabbling in exchange. Ooh. Okay. We're going to come back to that caption in a minute. One counterpart. Salamanders, undinis, and sylphs each gain different concessions, but they share the same counterpart. Counterpart, coin. Sprites, whether they are salamanders, undinis, or sylphs, are bound to do anything they agree to after a regular, free negotiation ending in payment. If they ever fail to do so, they'll inevitably face terrible, terrible things. Out of the spark. Contracted. Salamanders is concession enlightenment. Salamanders know they came out of the spark thanks to the contract binding them to the fire. Salamanders have bioluminescence in their hands, feet, and nose. Awesome! So long as they're not broken, salamanders can turn on these extremities and use them as cold, inextinguishable torches. Additionally, salamanders can occasionally rely on a striking epiphany, which grants them an instinctive knowledge of things about to happen. As such, once per session, salamanders can call upon their enlightenment and repeat 1 action roll of any kind with an additional +1. Okay, there's the bloating, which I guess makes them light. Maybe allows them to fly. I guess we're going to get there. Okay, what does it say? It says, Salamander's enlightenment, and Dini's water retention, and a sylph's bloating. So there's a sylph bloating. There's a dude retaining water, whatever that does for us. And here's the illumination stuff. Okay, here's the water retention. Indinis know they came out of the drain and have an affinity with water. The shiny, swollen bodies of Indinis grant them a form of natural resistance, which is helpful whenever they fall. Okay. Additionally, Indinis can naturally retain water to the point that they are almost sponges, able to hold great volumes of liquid in their bodies. As such, once per session, upon filling the crucial box, Indinis can absorb all excess stress without having to fill in additional boxes. When doing so, they sweat profusely and lose 1 level of decorum. So it's like a resistance thing. Interesting. For example, an Undini who would normally suffer 9 stress can choose to only suffer 8, up to the point where they fill in the crucial box. Interesting. There's exactly 9 stress in Girl by Moonlight as well. Okay, out of the draft, hereditary contract of sylphs, bloating. Sylphs came out of the draft and they share its legendary lightness. Sylph bones are hollow and elongated, making them ever so light. They never leave footprints, not even when walking over dust. At least not unless a sylph is carrying a load big enough to force them down to earth. That's some magical nonsense right there. Additionally, sylphs can rely on the gift of bloating and ingest large quantities of air, inflating like a balloon. As such, once per session, they can bloat up to gain a help in any rolls regarding stealth, subtlety, or balance. This bloating lasts up to 5 consecutive turns. To remain bloated, sylphs have to hold their breath. As such, they can't talk while doing so. Now, we skipped over all the mechanics, so we should know this already. But as a practice of close reading, if we had read this first, we would know that there is a help thing, which is different than kind of the advantage that we saw up here, right? No, they did have helpful. So I guess those are the same. So something that's helpful. It also tells us that this is going to be a game where you will be stealthing, you will be subtle, or you will need to balance on things. Now, this seems like a nothing thing to say, but like you can actually, if you pay really close attention, a game will tell you what kinds of stories and adventures you're going to have, even when they're not explicitly telling you. So you're going to be, whatever. Anyway, probably didn't need to be said, but whatever. Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, they're the same. Okay. Very good. Very, very good. Revenant from Far Beyond. We're going to do a poll here in a bit, too. And we're going to have everybody, all 4 of you are going to vote on which of the 4 things, 4 folk you like the best. So we might have a 4-way tie. Black is the path to Far Beyond, blind the eyes of those who tread it. They say that when the master first began building the house, the littlings who lived on that land divided into 4 folk. The Slaw chose to abandon their ancestral home, setting off on a long pilgrimage that led them to a distant and mysterious place known as the Far Beyond. Lost in an unknown land, the Slaw were plagued by all manner of ailments and sicknesses, and they slowly began to rot, much like a plant that has lost its roots. With no one else to turn to, they loudly began to call out onto the forces of Far Beyond, whose name and shape are unknown to all in the household. And as a gift, all Slaw had their veins filled with a new type of blood, dark and dense as molasses, slow and thick as a starless night. In exchange, they were asked to give up all unfinished business. By the power of this deal, the Slaw became an unstoppable horde, and they successfully made a journey nobody had ever dared to attempt, the journey back to the house. I think I missed this earlier, so I'm glad I'm seeing it now. They started in the house. They left when the... Why did they leave? Does it say? So when the master first began building the house. So maybe they were on the grounds of the area where the house was being built, and that's why they left. And then they came back to the house later. I don't know. I'm sure the answers are in the text somewhere. A glass of XXX. When traveling to any city in the basement, but especially when setting foot in the worst dives of Dazawar, you can stumble into a famous beverage that is bound to catch the eye of the unwary tourist. This liquor is known as XXX. It is pale green in color, and that should be enough to dissuade even the most reckless littling from drinking it. Anyway, this alcoholic hogwash is practically poison for any littling, well, except for the Slaw, who thanks to their unique healing factors can guzzle endless amounts of it. What's worse, there's an even concentrated version of the drink that is a deep, dark purple liquid known as Quintuple X. This nauseating spirit goes beyond being practically poison. It is poison in the most literal and basic meaning of the word. Even to this day, scholars in the house are racking their brains as to how the Slaw can manage to knock it back without falling dead on the spot, and the Slaw usually answer with a toast. Revenant from Far Beyond. Unbleeding. The dark, dense blood that flows through the veins of the Slaw has incredible healing powers and makes them able to shrug off with great ease even lethal wounds. Thanks to this wondrous ability, a Slaw always has a help when rolling to avoid sickness or drunkenness. Additionally, once per session, the Slaw can call on their extremely fast regeneration power to avoid suffering the hurt, poison, sick, or drunk condition, or to avoid suffering stress as a consequence of an attack or any other physical danger, like a fall from height or a strong impact. Again, this dude got stabbed. He just got straight up stabbed. And he's still got the upper hand here. Pictured here, Slaw isn't fazed by a duel to the last blood. Yikes. Do not duel these guys. Again, just looking at these 4 folk and their contracts, you can already tell things about the game. That there are conditions, that these are the types of conditions that you may encounter, that stress is a mechanic, that things like falling are going to be important, things like strong impacts are going to be important. Counterpart debt. When a slaw accepts a bet and loses, they are forced to honor their debt. If they ever fail to do so, they'll inevitably face terrible, terrible things. The other thing is, presumably, the narrator is explicitly looking to challenge these counterparts to your contracts. In the same way that you have quests in Legend in the Mist, and you're expected as the narrator there to also challenge those quests, because a core mechanic to the quest is, do they stick to it and make progress with it, or do they abandon it and then change? If you don't present them with conundrums that challenge those quests, there's nothing for them to interface with. In the same way, because these exist, it's basically implicitly saying, hey, GM, this is how you need to challenge them. You need to put them in debts that may challenge them to actually live up to, or you'll never see these terrible, terrible things happen. Not that you need them to happen, but that's kind of the whole point. How did I pronounce it? Dazaware? I came up with some pronunciation when I said it, but the Dasur, it could be. It could be. It very well could be. This dude's a badass, though. He's very cool. All right. Household forces I've been excited to get to, but we're going to try and do a poll real quick. Start a poll. There you have it. There's a poll in chat for your favorite folk so far. I'll let that run for a minute. See what you guys think. Again, a strength of what we've experienced so far is that it seems that equal care was given to have each of these folk communicate a sense of pride, and I could see as a player being excited to play any of them, which is great. There's nothing so firmly pulling me to one over the other, and they all seem equally cool in their own ways, and I really appreciate that. Okay, that's it. That's all the votes are in. I don't even have to wait because I know how many people are here and I see how many votes we got. Can you guys see the results? My vote was vibed because I missed some of them. Which one did you vote for, Dicey? So Slaw takes it with 3 out of 4 votes going there. No votes for Sprite, no votes for Fairy, and 1 vote for Boggart. The Slaw do seem really freaking cool. They have that cool factor. The Fairy are just beautiful, though. I might go Fairy. I think I would want to play a Boggart, but the Slaw are the ones I find most interesting, yeah. The Boggarts seem really cool, too. Anyway, I need to get a better poll bot in here if I ever actually want to do things. That's just the YouTube built-in one, and I don't even know if it, I don't even know. I don't know if it'll come up in the VOD. I have no idea. Whatever. If it doesn't, and you're a VOD watcher, the Slaw took it handily. Dicey was the Boggart vote. Boggart are cool. They're very cool. The Juggernaut thing is neat. They have a very Colossus from the X-Men vibe. Like Pyotr Rasputin, right? He's just like a hard-working dude, who can get into it. They give a lot of good inspiration for RP, all of them, yeah. Got to look at the city arts now. The art is actually super informative. Okay, before I do the forces or after? Because we're in the forces, and I did want to read about these. How many pages do the forces take up here? Oh, we haven't even gotten into personal contracts, terrible things, welcoming contracts. Good lord. If you join during stream, you can vote. Well, I ended the vote though. Oh, but you're talking to the VOD watchers? Yeah. I mean, why aren't you here right now? Yeah. I'm basically like the big muscle man. It's good to know yourself. Good to know yourself. Let me just zip ahead here. Oh, this is going to be a good narrative read, though. Okay, we'll find the city pictures. Do you know where they are, Thaddeus? I mean, of course you do, but In the house chapter, possibly. Ooh, this is kind of dilapidated. Interesting. Oh, that's a 2-page spread. Hold on. Hold on. Oh my god. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Absolutely insane. They'll be at the top of each of the sections. Okay. Oh, there's a map. Very cool. That's neat. You're supposed to tell VOD watchers to put their poll answers in the comments. Wow, brilliant, actually. Copper, you're on it today. You are on top of it. Yeah, put your answers in the comments. Ding. I'm still new to this. I've only been doing this for 4 months. Oh my god. This art is insane. The town of Downridge welcomes people on the Great Stairs. So that's the town. These look like little boxes. But like, no, look at it. So again, if you were a human who came to this house, you'd be like, oh shit, there's some stuff going on here. They're not hiding. That's crazy. This is wild. Oh man, they have their own calendar and everything. That's awesome. I mean, God, I would love to read this season section and just have it really be indicative of like what the seasons of living in the house are like. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The highlight chandelier. This is the fairy city. Look at all, oh my, okay. This is so informative because you're sitting here thinking like, how does any of this all work? And there's your answer. They've like literally built stairs up onto the chairs that go up and then up to the table. And then you can like, oh my God. Oh my God. And of course the fairy can fly. So they're just vibing. And the candles is like the, oh my gosh. That's insane. This is so weird, right? It's so weird. Because like you live in the city and you're just like, yeah, there's a bunch of shit that like fell out of this cabinet at some point. But like, whatever. That's like the dump at the edge of town. Like it's way over there because you're small. It's crazy. That's so crazy. The dining hall. You got mushrooms growing everywhere. Pictured here, Marquis Tristan de Larmes, the Dark Fairy. Ooh, Dark Fairies, wow. Ooh, oh, ooh, wow. Here's our ruler of the house. Okay, so she's on the cover. Arcadia Obernovna, ruling empress of the house. So she's on the cover art. On the left, the streets of Lowlight, Astravia, capital of the realm. So this is underneath the chandelier. On the table. Crazy. Genuinely crazy. Here's Arcadia again. Cheeky little wink on this guy here. Or gal. Irreverently portrayed as a card joker. That's funny. Okay, we've got some soldiers. And what do we have here? The living room. So this would be... the hearth, right? So this is this boggart stuff? I'm just taking it in. My immediate thought with this tree too is that it was an old Christmas tree that fell over, but there's no way it would still have its needles after all that time. So this is a recent like tree that has collapsed or fallen in on the house, or still a living tree that has grown in through the windows. Could be. Master disappeared 100 years ago, so yeah, this is the boggart theming. There's the living room. I don't see like their city though. It looks like, okay, there's a bunch of houses up on the shelf here. Do they live in the shelf? Oh, they live under this chair? The Yule tree. The toppled tree located right in the middle of the living room can be seen from every place in the hearth. There was a time when its branches were decorated with huge spheres painted with strange motifs and with the same lights that were later donated to the sprites and brought back to life by wise Paracelsus to illuminate Beddingham. Well, maybe it's a resilient type of tree that's needles stay on a really long time. Oh my gosh, bumblebee messengers. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, guys. Who's this dude? He was on the cover as well. Young brave spine with his legendary cloak of quilts. Quills, sorry, not quilts. Okay, so brave spine is the guy who was talking about how it's all in servant to the house and everything. William Bravespine Harthworth Jr., first among boggarts, Hearthkeeper and Lord of the Living Room, Honorary Knight of the Cinder Order, Grand General of the Hearth's Army and General of the Imperial Army, Lord of the Living Room, the Fireplace Hollow and the Sofa, Lord of Greenwood and Deadwood, Grand Master of the Gamekeepers, Utmost Protector of the Master's Seat. Utmost Protector of the Master's Seat, yeah. There's a reverence to the Master who has departed. Yeah, that was his quote. For the Master's big, and these are such small matters. Seems like a cool dude. Also on the cover art. Okay, fireplace. Cinder Hall. Oh my god. Absolutely insane. So this is upstairs. So this is Realm of the Sprites. This is Beddingham, right? And so look, their city is underneath the bed. Check that out. And then we've got Tubbingham we've got to see too. That cloak on Bravespine, yeah. The Queen and the Boggart at the Theatre Royale on Monday, 14th day of April, to begin exactly at 6 o'clock. Huh. That's cute. Pictured here, children playing in the Beddingham Market. Look at this cute mouse. Look at this guy. Look at this guy living his best life. That's so good. I see that they let the artists do signatures too on their pieces. Not all publishers do that, I've come to learn. Porcelain infantry. Oh my god. You were not kidding, Thaddeus. Holy shit. The bathroom, the most busy room of the upper floor. There's a little bit here where I'm just like, why? Why would it ever be worth creating an entire sailing ship when, like, these buildings are not that big and you could walk the circumference of the tub to get to wherever you want to go? That's one of, I'm like, what? Huh? But look at this. Look, they have, okay, here's some sort of capital city with the water running. Why? How is there water running in this house? Well, I guess the Undini are literally working it to keep the water running. They're literally keeping the plumbing going. But check this out. Look at this. They have machinery that is like turning the water on and off as needed for who knows what purpose. Color-coded with hot and cold. The fun thing about these tiny character games, Pico, Master Order, Household, is you can easily pull on your own lived experience or locations. Yeah, that's true. That is true, even if it is fantastical in nature. Here's the toilet bowl. I don't know what's going on here. Are they letting water spill out onto the floor? That seems reckless. That seems reckless and short-sighted, you guys. God, and just imagine, if you can't fly, if you're not a sylph or a fairy, and you're here, like, your life is like looking up at this wall and these like gigantic portraits, massive paintings that are like larger than life. And it's like we might look up and see a sunset and they look up and see a piece of art. You know? Thaddeus, are you lost? Do you forget what stream we're on? I like overthinking it and then saying, but don't worry about it. That's the duology. That's the London duology. But also, you know, they're going to have daylight cycles with literally the sun and the moon coming up and down and overcast days. I wonder what they think about overcast days. Well, I guess they understand. It's not like they'd never go outside or they don't understand things. That's crazy, though. That's so cool. And maybe they just like boats, you know? Boats are cool. Wild. Super wild. Oh, Thaddeus, there is an answer. Look, there's a whirlpool in the middle. They keep the water running because it's a conveyance system that this goes down the drain, and they literally ship things through the pipes. Under that artificial waterfall, there's a whirlpool leading down through the piping. From here, littlings can throw in any large crate so long it is fairly resistant and contains no living or fragile wares. Then, using heavy mechanisms and the strength of many littlings, they can move the faucet handles to open or close the jet of water and choose which room of the house the wares will end up in, or even have them come up from other nations. So the ships are a means to get out in this turbulent thing and chuck stuff into the... Could they do it a different way? Probably. Yeah, they could build an arching bridge across and just toss stuff in. But, like, you know, why not? It's cool. It's fantastical. Oh, yeah. Here we go. This is kind of what? This is the slaw basement. Pictured here, the basement basked in the warm light of the furnace. Not really sure on the scale with a lot of these things, but I'm sure scale is really hard to keep consistent with this type of art. Yeah, we talked about that early on. There was a piece of art where they were standing next to some books. There's a lot of things that are subjectively sized, and then there was one where it was the art of them next to a pretty thick book. And it's like, we know the general thickness of paper, and so we can extrapolate from that to the thickness of the book, and so on and so forth. And so we talked about, is it consistent? Is it not consistent? Doesn't matter. Okay, so the piping that we saw... for the visuals of the slaw was not water piping. It was furnace piping. Heat, rust pipes, that kind of stuff. Look at this, though. You see these little cities all over the place, settlements. There's a whole, there's a whole freaking like thing right here on this chair, and they use spider silk to get around. That's wild. Because there's a place called Samarachnid here somewhere. There's a city in a drawer. This is crazy. I mean, this isn't a whole city, right? This is like a city block. But there's a bunch of stuff going on here. Crazy. Because, yeah, I could picture having an adventure where, like, you look at this art for inspiration and you're like, hey, you know, we need to, like, open this chest and figure out what's in here. Or drill through it or whatever. This workshop, so cool. Very cool. It's very cool. That's a beautiful character art as well. And we got some channels here too. Very cool. Yeah, and you have that Middle Eastern Arabic influenced style. Gorgeous. It's all gorgeous. Capitano Rodamante studying a painting of himself with Kublai Khan's head in his hand. Brutal. I would be very tempted to set a game like this in my own living space or somewhere I had lived previously. That would be cool. That would be really neat. Oh, there's the quintuple X. Wild. Capitano Rodamante. All right, look at that. Threats are measured by number of spiders. Okay, the only other things that I want to make sure we get to today is we're going to go back to contracts. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this thing about the forces. We might just kind of quickly skim over the other styles of contract, if I'm honest. I've been going for 2.5 hours at this point. And, my God, this art. A fairy accepting the contract offered by a golden silk orb weaver. Literally spun the contract out of spider silk. Like, sign your name here, fairy. Yeah. Wild. Okay, let me read this. I have a running joke at my table that these things are measured in beagles. You know, you joke, but there's a section right in the beginning where it talks about the little meters and how the scholars who have read this book that was discovered have no idea what the meters are in reference to littlings, except for they're like, it's presumably the same scale as a meter is to us, but they call them little meters, and there's like a 0 sense of scale for anything. Very funny. Okay. Let me bring this back up. All Alright, here's what we're going to do. Where is that song I really like? Oh, this one's good. That's not the song I just clicked on. Why are you being this way? Oh, it is skipping entire songs. It's not letting me play them. Weird. Weird. How very strange. Okay, I'm just going no music on this because I want to do a reading of it. The household forces. Air, water, and fire. These forces dominate over the house since the master disappeared. We will probably never know for sure which of them is the oldest and thus most powerful, but there are some theories. According to some, the fire was burning in the fireplace when the master disappeared. Its flames were strong, its embers hungry, and it ruled undisputed for 3 days and 3 nights before it started choking. Without the family to open doors and windows, there was no more oxygen to satiate its burning lungs, and on the 4th day, the fire was coughing and sputtering dark, billowing smoke. It was then that the fire blew with all its might, sending Soot, its servant, up the chimney. The black ambassador sought out the air, which in turn signed a contract with the fire and came back to live in the house. But as days went by, the air fell ill. She went to the bed of coals where the fire was resting, fat and bright, and pleaded it to quell its hunger. The air was coarse, dry, and almost spent, and the fire feared for its life. In the end, it had to grant a contract to the water, so it could heal the air, and it's easy to believe those who say it first tried with oil, ink, and even wine before stooping to this. According to others, water was the one to remain, headstrong and patient in the pipes and drains, holding the house in its damp fingers. But water was both master and prisoner, trapped in the cold metal and locked in the walls of its dominion. It was then that it was sent the mold, its servant, to seek out the fire, and signed a contract with it. The fire's heat made water light, turning it into a thin mist, smaller than any dewdrop, which could waft to freedom. But the water loves and wants all that is low and deep and below, everything that depresses. In its vapor form stuck on the ceiling, water called onto the air, allowing it to enter, and the air cooled the house in exchange, so that water could return to flow and defy the fire that wanted to keep it prisoner up above. By now, you already understand that there are some that say the air was the first true inhabitant and master of the house, so I'll just tell you why. They say the master had created the house to host water and fire, but to his own liking. As such, their presence was welcome, surely, but limited in time and season, subject to his whims. But the air was no guest. It was a resident. No time, no place, no secret was kept from it. When the house was left vacant, the air inherited it as new master, and it lightly caressed every memory in its rooms and hallways, sweeping them in the fall with warm leaves. They also say it granted contracts and shelter to water and fire, maybe to honor the old times, maybe out of laziness. But if you've lived long enough to hear all 3 of these stories, sooner or later, you end up asking the right people to tell you more. Maybe the wrong people? Maybe simply weirder people. I was once told that water, air, and fire are all equally ancient forces, and they are all equally bound by contract to another force, their superior. When the master disappeared, they said the house remained empty. The fireplace was ashen, the pipes dry, the windows closed. No force could enter the abandoned domains. Life itself had forsaken these rooms. Then it came, out of nothing, impalpable. At first light, tenuous, delicate. Then it grew thick, and the ivory keys, the crystal glasses, the standing mirrors and abandoned silvers, and all that once shone bright, became muted, covered in the gray embrace of the new master of the house. Dust. It's useless to ask me what I believe. I'd answer that. When nobody can know the truth, each story is as good as the next, and 4 stories are better than 1. Those who believe everything may be wrong, but those who don't believe anything at all can't possibly be right. There you go. Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun read. Very cool mythos. Oh, the mythos has echoes of the absent creator idea and theology. The world was created by a powerful being, but then that being left the world to run on its own. Love it. And this elemental mythos is beautiful. Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. That concept at the end, though, is the takeaway for me. I call this the takeaway. If I watch a movie and I don't get a takeaway from it, then I usually leave feeling disappointed. But yeah, those who believe everything may be wrong, but those who don't believe anything at all can't possibly be right. Very interesting quote. Okay, let's look quickly at these personal contracts. Because the personal ones are the ones made with the forces, okay? So in character creation, you're going to probably pick some amount of these. Wall Strider. An agreement between the littling and the walls can be offered by the Sunset Devil, a fearsome huntsman spider, or by other representatives of the wall. So you get spider step, you could probably run up the walls, that's cool. Counterpart left-footed, you lose the right perspective on your surroundings and generally have a hard time staying grounded. That is interesting. When going up or down stairs, you always have to make the first step with your left foot. If you don't specifically say this, the narrator will roll a numeric die to randomly determine which foot you used. If you ever fail to comply, you inevitably face terrible, terrible things. To put an end, you must retread the same stairs backwards and break the last step. Wow. Goldthirst, agreement between a littling and the cash, can be offered by Mammon, the weaver of the golden web in Rose Vault, or by any other representatives of the cash. We got 2 with spiders so far. Possession is profit. You inexplicably begin to accumulate money and wealth. Whenever you obtain some coins, an unexpected, providential, or simply lucky event also occurs and you obtain double the amount. This happens for all coins you find, earn, steal, or gain at the beginning of a chapter, but not for money you borrow. Wow. Counterpart, expensive taste. You're a spendthrift and love to waste your wealth to satisfy your every whim. At the same time, you're greedy and pinch pennies when it comes to others. No force in this house could persuade you to lend money to others. You have to swallow 1 coin every night, and if you ever fail to comply with this clause, you inevitably face the T3. To put an end, you must eat 33 coins in a single meal. Bizarre. Never heard. Never heard is an agreement between a littling and the silence. Can be offered by the fog giant, the net-casting spider that haunts Dreadwood. Are they all spiders? Because that's wild. Oh no, okay, we're going to have centipedes here. Your steps and movements are unnaturally quiet. Counterpart muffled. You can no longer shout or sing. No. You have to do your best to avoid making any noise, like you would when playing an instrument, shouting, shooting, or breaking glass. If you ever fail to comply with this clause, you'll inevitably face terrible things. To put an end, you must remain completely silent for 2 days and 2 nights. Oof, that's a tough one in a role-playing game. But you can always do a low murmur or whisper, so yeah. Vainglory. The mirror can be offered by Bismelia, the giant centipede slithering through the in-betweens of the realm, or by other representatives of the mirror. Sophistication. You're always the picture of refined elegance. You have a natural sense of style and grace without equal. Got it. Okay, there's like statuses to like decorum here. We did talk about decorum with, was it the Boggarts? When they go Juggernaut, they lose a decorum or something like that. Counterpart perfection. You always have to be the best, like no one ever was. To catch them is your real test. You compare yourself to others in all aspects of life. This is why we're in Extreme soon, because I'm getting silly. You do your best to never ask for anyone's help, and always use new refined weapons and items. If you fail to comply, you inevitably face terrible, terrible things. You must spend a night with a high-born littling. Spend a night, eh? What do we mean by that, game? When children first learn about contracts... Okay... So after 1 level of them... There are 5 levels... each tied to a table of misfortunes, and each more nefarious than the previous. Okay. Only the narrator knows if and which terrible, terrible things might befall you during the session, and they are tasked with making sure that these disastrous or troublesome events hinder you at the worst possible times in the story. Example, Lazarus has 2 levels of T3s. When the session begins, the narrator secretly rolls a die and gets a 1. They refer to table 1 of the terrible, terrible things and roll once again to choose one of the 6 misfortunes on the table. They get a 3. A stroke of bad luck ruins your clothes, lower your level of decorum. Without saying anything to the players, the narrator makes a note and starts the session when they feel the time is right. They describe something unexpected that immediately ruins Lazarus's clothes. Oh, man. So they get loaded up. You have no idea what they are. The GM knows the perfect time to use them. That's wild. That is wild. If you have at least 1 and face none of them during the session, it increases by 1. So if the GM can't find, the narrator, if they can't find a way to use it, it's going to increment. You also increase your level when you make another violation of a contract, including the one you already violated. So there are those specific ones to the contract that you're going to just have pervasively. And then there's also the random stuff that's coming your way. Okay. If the result of the roll is higher than your level of TTTs, nothing happens. Okay, so if you have level 1 and the roll a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nothing happens. So you have a 16% chance. If you have a 2, 32% chance. If you have a 3, 50% chance. If the result is equal or lower to your level, they go on to consult the table. Sure. Making TTT stop. The only way to stop it is to amend your previous violation of the contract. Yeah. But you can be in violation of multiple contracts. If you violated only 1 contract, you lose all accumulated TTT levels when you earn the pardon of the house and make amends. If you violated more than 1, making amends for one of the infractions only allows you to reduce your TTT levels to half rounded down. So at best, if you have more than 1, you can half it. So if you have 3 and you're at a 6, you can fix 1 and you'll go down to 3. You fix another one, you'll go down to 1. Yeah, because rounded down. So you still have it. And then you have to fix the other one to completely clear it. So don't do that. All right, let's look at some random ones of these. Actually, let's use a little thing called a die. Because rolling dice is fun. So here we have a d6. And we'll just roll and then roll again. So we got a 2 and a 6. A mischievous child is targeting you. They won't lay off for 1 day. Huh. That's terrifying. That is terrifying. All right, let's see another one. A 4 and a 5. You're tormented by scenes of your past. Your memories can only be a hindrance. Oof. There's a memory mechanic, clearly, that we haven't seen yet. Maybe you can call on them for a help. But it seems like the narrator can probably call on your memories as a hindrance. All right, one more. Another 2 and a 2. You caught a cold or got indigestion. You're sick. Oh, that's kind of mild. Let's do one more. A 6, which doesn't exist. We'll read off table 5. And a 3. When it rains, it pours. Whenever you suffer a condition, you immediately suffer another. Brutal. Brutal. Look at this one. A giant huntsman spider barges in a moment of great tension and wreaks havoc. You don't want that. All right. Welcoming contracts. These are the ones that let you enter places. So we'll briefly look at these and then we'll wrap it up. Tight little 3-hour stream. The only way to enter Samarachnid is to cross the Silk Road, a vertical bridge made of precious and delicate spider silk with the help of a friendly wolf spider. However, you're still bound to fall into the void and hopelessly crash into the Great Blade as soon as you reach the city. Oh, we haven't found the Great Blade yet. Is that the fan in the furnace? That's probably what that is. After all, Samarkand hangs on the ceiling and is completely built upside down. Samarachnid, sorry. Did we miss that in the picture? Hold on. Hold on. Did we miss a city hanging from the ceiling? We didn't. Okay, it just didn't show it to us. But I want to see it if it's here. So we're going to search the term. We're going to go through real quick. Great Blade is the saw blade in the center of the city. think we're going to get a visual of Samarachnid, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, so... Great blade. Saw blade in the center of the city. So saw blade, okay. Come on, Art, populate. I know I'm making you jump all around. Ah, this one here, huh? Okay. Got it. Okay, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, welcoming contracts. Sorry, I'm all over the place. The heart of Cinderhall stands behind the cast iron gates, and into the fireplace hollow. Sneaking in is almost impossible. The only way to safely enter these, and who knows what other unreachable and unlivable places, is to get a specific contractual extension known as a welcoming contract. You have to meet the owner or keeper, get a formal welcome. Lasts for the length of your stay and gets automatically rescinded upon leaving. Whenever you violate counterpart of a welcoming contract, you do not suffer terrible, terrible things and do not increase your TTT's level. You simply lose all benefits of the concession. Oh, because, yeah, the concession is that you don't immediately burst into flame in some cases. That checks out. The domain contract. The most important welcoming contract of all is the domain contract. This is the most ancient agreement tying each of us littlings to the house we inhabit, thanks to this mysterious power that Argo the bureaucrat and wise Paracelsus spent years studying. Every object and every place in the house grows in size as it grows in relevance. Oh, now that's going to mess with your sense of scale there. Once upon a time, the master's power established the correct size of his home, which was as spacious as needed by the family that inhabited it. Today, in his absence, the house decided to grant its space on the basis of contractual power of each littling in place, as well as of its inscrutable whims. As such, it should not surprise us when an entire city fits inside a drawer and is in fact much larger than the container. It's the power of the domain contract. This, I will say, should not be on page 150. This should have been way in the beginning because it's really cool and it contextualizes everything that comes after it. But it's here. Upside down welcome. Has the power to operate an upside down welcome contract. Samarkand. Okay, so the city is literally upside down gravitationally as well. Huh. That's cool. You may never harm a spider, not even in self-defense. Oof. Kindled welcome. Access to Cinderhall. Fire will not harm you. This is a good idea. Okay, so there's only 2 examples, and then you can make your own. But those are cool. Those are really cool examples. The domain contracts. Okay. There it is. Do you guys want one more dramatic reading? I'll do another dramatic reading because I like doing it. And then we'll probably wrap up stream. So we'll read the fun italic text, and then we'll send you all off to enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And I don't have to work till 6 p.m. today. Haha. And then I need to troubleshoot my chat issue, figure that out. So here we go. The domain contract. How big is the house? Many scholars have been brought to the brink of madness in search of an answer to this age-old question. Every time they tried to measure a room, the numbers came out different from those recorded before or after. Sometimes the different sides of the same corridor figured as having different lengths, sometimes by a lot. There's an interesting essay on the topic written by an architect from the realm. They demonstrated that the surface of the table in the dining hall was up to 10 times bigger than the floor section delimited by its wide legs. This discovery sparked long discussions, but was ultimately dismissed as a calculation error. The most creditable hypothesis to date is the one formulated by wise Paracelsus. He firmly believes in the existence of an extraordinary welcoming contract binding all littlings to the house, the domain contract. As Paracelsus explains, the size of the house had remained stable and constant so long as the greater power of the master kept it so. With him gone, there was nobody powerful enough or important enough to bend the house to their will. According to this hypothesis, the contractual power of each littling or location determines the size or perceived size of the space. As such, the places in the house which have greater importance, a densely populated city, for example, become or appear larger than the others. Think about when you were a child, for example. Your home seemed huge, as did its tables, beds, and chairs. This is because you were not the owner of the house. You had no rights to move or change the furniture, or to knock down walls. When you return to that same home as a grown-up, everything looks much smaller. You could be led to think that is due to the fact that you have grown, becoming taller. But that is not true. As we age, we gain more power over the things that surround us. We gain the ability to replace old chairs or change the floor of a room, and with our power, the domain contracts causes our size to also grow, or the world's size to shrink, depending on which theory you follow. To find further proof of this phenomenon, a noble mansion, or even of the imperial palace, it will surely appear huge to you. And you'll probably wonder, what use do they have for such large rooms? The truth is that, to them, their house does not appear large, and in conversation you may even hear them say it's too small, and perhaps that they envy the larger mansion of a friend. This happens because they have more importance than you, and thus more contractual power. Another illustration of this theory is the fact that the house is inhabited by beasts of gargantuan dimensions. Think about Reginella, the mother of all spiders. She can no longer fit in the in-betweens, and some even say she is dozens of tiny meters tall. According to the wise Paracelsus, this is because such an important spider must have enormous contractual power, and as such, everything must seem tiny to her, just as she appears huge to us. Once he made this amazing discovery, the Pulvid was also able to build the first household compass, an extraordinary contraption that picks up the energy of the domain contract and always points to the center of the house. Without this incredible invention, facing the long, unpredictable journeys through this wonderful world would be much harder. Wild. Wild stuff. Super, super wild stuff. Okay, that's going to do it for us. We're going to look briefly at wealth because we're curious. You do have coins. So you basically have a wealth level. That means you can afford everything beneath that wealth level, but if you want to buy things above that level, you got to spend coins. That's what I gather here. 4 levels of wealth. Poor, you begin with 2 coins. Middle class, you begin with 5. Well off, you begin with 10. And rich, you begin with 15. So it's a duality of a wealth system, which I find interesting. On the left, a crystal and some banknotes. Very cool. Plates and grains. Well, there you have it. There is Household. Wild. It's a wild book and a wild game, presumably. There's a game in here, too. I know we didn't talk about it. There's a whole freaking game in here. And there's more italic text pages. All sorts of crazy art. It is neat. And once again, like I've said, we have not even touched on the mechanics, even remotely. So, very interesting. Very interesting. Art of the weapons is super interesting. Yeah. I mean, are you talking about specifically? I will look at it. You guys can look at it next stream. I'll look at it now. Haha. Forks, spoons, a key that's been turned into an axe. Oh, wow. Wow. Nails, yeah. Thumbtacks. Crazy. Well, if you want to see them, you'll have to tune in next stream. Sorry, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Or buy the book. I mean, what do I care? Go buy the book. Two Little Mice is the publisher. I think I put I intended to put the links into the description. I don't know how well I did for this stream as far as prompting all that stuff. But anyway, thank you, Thaddeus, for recommending Household and getting me to take a look at it. We will do a second stream. It will be more of a mechanical look. Kind of in a similar way to how I looked at Blue Rose and then came back for a base camp. I don't know if I should call this one a base camp. I've barely used the terminology base camp. Whatever. Maybe this is what we'll call it. Is we do a first contact to figure out the vibe. We'll do a base camp to figure out the mechanics. Overall feeling is interested. I don't know that I would like... I have so many things competing for what I want to play. that the chances of me getting this to a table or playing in it, I would think are pretty low, if I'm honest. But like, it's been such a delight. It's like I've been talking in our community in London Station about how I wish I was more of an avid reader than I feel like I have time to be. But this felt enriching in a I am reading something way. Got creative juices flowing. Of course, the art is beautiful. This is a book that I would have no compunctions about owning hard copy of just to have and to read through. So it's remarkable in that. And if the game is good as well, whew, I mean, it's got a strong foundation. If the game is good as well, then dang. If the game is not good, like I said, run Legend in the Mist in this place. I mean, you got contracts, like figure out some sort of little contract subsystem for that. Use your theme cards for, one theme card always has to be, your contracts, and then you write tags for what contracts you have active and you swap them out or whatever as you go. Each contract comes with, it's a concession, which would be sort of a weakness tag of sorts, but maybe just abstract it and say that I would just run it as its own subsystem outside of the standard Legend in the Mist stuff, but you could absolutely get away with doing that. So very cool for that thing. Have you had a chance to run a group through this or play it or be in a game of it with anybody, Thaddeus? That's very cool. That's the overall feeling, is it's very, 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 very cool. So, yeah, that'll do it. We got 3 hours out of that bad boy, which is pretty remarkable, because sometimes I lose steam at, like the 2 hour mark, but there's enough to keep me going. I probably could have kept going, but I've pushed beyond 3 hours before, and the quality of what I offer goes way down. So I don't want to subject you to that. But we'll be back with it probably next Saturday. Again, don't hold me to that, to take a look at the mechanical side of it. And there are more books, right? And so there's, setting books, adventures, all sorts of crazy stuff for this. But yeah, a good look as far as I'm concerned. If you have made it all this way in the VOD, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming to London Station. We're a cool group, as you can tell by the chat that you can't see on screen, but you can tell I'm interacting with these people. They're real. They exist. We've got a great community around London Station. We would be happy to have you. It is inexpensive to join in and give us a little test run. See if you like chatting with some of these people in the Patreon Discord interface that we have. Of course, you're always welcome to participate live in chat. London Station, we stream Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, Wednesday evenings, and then additionally, whenever I feel like it. We've been playing Golden Sun, if you like old JRPGs on the Game Boy Advance. I've been playing Expedition 33, which spawned a whole heck of a rant from me. You can find that in the videos tab. That's my condensed thoughts about a certain twist that happened at the end of Act 1. That's actually been fun to watch the analytics for that one, because, the streams, it's like I get my viewership and then it's like stops. Like, not a lot of people come back to watch the streams later. But for that Expedition 33 clip that I took from that stream, the viewership just keeps gradually going up, so it keeps getting discovered by people. It's pretty fun. I might actually clip out the reading of that elemental section as its own little video just for fun, because it does not hurt. Cannot hurt. You're intending to run it soon. Also, there's a volume 2 if you become interested. It includes some super cool system regarding the seasons. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, this life of being just anybody in the RPG hobby. It's like, there are other games that I'm absolutely in love with that I haven't gotten to a table that also have second books. Blue Rose is second books that I've even bought. I have them on my shelf over there at my reading desk, and I haven't even cracked them. So there's so much. I did feel a little bit of that romantic fantasy vibe that is present in Blue Rose. Just hints of it. Just hints of it here and there. So I found that interesting in kind of the way that some of the races that are in Aldis, or is it Aldir? Forget the name of the nation. But anyhow, yes, check us out, London Station. Be sure to like the stream. Be sure to leave a comment if you were not here live with us about which of the folk seem most interesting, your thoughts on the game. If you'd like to see more from Household, I kind of already gave it away. We're going to do another stream. But if you like this type of content, you want to see other types of content, feel free to leave that in the comments. What else do I need to tell you guys? We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about death in RPGs as a broad concept and how different games handle it and what we think of it, and does it actually serve a good purpose? And yeah, we'll hash out that old RPG conversation once again. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon and evening. We'll be back tomorrow with London Station. Have a great night, everybody. Love y'all.